Welcome back to the Wilderness Podcast. It's good to have you all back again. It's good to be back again. I am your host for today, Trey, and I'm joined by our guest, Wintersplit. Winter, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. First time, long time.
Winter's been my recent raiding buddy. I'll get to specifics of that raid in a little bit. But I will, we'll talk all about Winter and what we're going to be doing in just a second. So it's been a while since we've recorded, and I should probably explain a little bit of all of that. So, Dilz has been busy. Anybody who's listened to this podcast for a long enough time has probably heard that. I'm been the co-host now for almost a year, and so I've been the guy, and I came at this show from being I'm a huge fan of this podcast, and so I remember all those hiatuses, and I remember wanting to have new episodes released, but so I've been messaging Dilz, and he's just been really busy, and it's totally understandable. I kind of realized. I was thinking about it, like recording a podcast about a video game. It's like, it's a hobby within a hobby in a sense of like playing RuneScape in the first place. Like you got to have some downtime, and it takes time to play. And then like going beyond that to do something like a podcast, you got to have even more free time. So I totally understand him being busy. I don't have no problem with that. But he did tell me, he kind of gave me the keys to the kingdom of the podcast for the time being. He said, "Hey, if you're available to record, like I trust you, like whatever you want to put out, like let's do it." And so, I had this idea, because Dilz is busy and there will be, potentially there can be delays in getting episodes out. I wanted to kind of break away from every episode being about whatever the latest content was. Because for one, obviously that's kind of what everybody else is doing, but also like if I release this episode and it comes out in January and it's talking about the start of leagues in November, and it's going to be pretty pointless. So I had the idea of starting kind of a new kind of mini series or whatever that I'm calling like All About, where we just have episodes focused on just one part of the game and kind of just diving in. It's not like a documentary. I'm not just going to tell you all the facts. It's just more like what are our feelings on this, and having some different guests on that I feel could be kind of applicable to that subject. That's what I'm going to do. And so today's episode, we're going to be talking about Tombs of the Masket, and just kind of I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but everything kind of having to do with Tombs of the Masket, and all of that. But first, I'll give an update on my iron. I know, I've had some people asking me about different progresses that I've had on the iron, and I don't know. So there was an episode that me and Dilz recorded about a month ago. I don't know if that's going to be released or if this one will be released first. So there might be some overlap, but long story short, I have just fully gone into the deep end on the iron. I've been going really hard at it. I just before we started recording, I made my Necklace of Anguish and my Ring of Suffering. So I got my first 2 Zenites, which was amazing. I've been grinding Slayer because my goal was 87, and I got that. I got my Trident, I got my Tent Whip, and I made my only whip into a tent whip, and now I have to go back and get a new whip. And I did not think that out very well, but I have been PVMing just constantly. I got to 200 Corrupted Gauntlet, and I have 9 armor seeds, so I've been very spooned on those. No enhanced yet. And last night I hit 69 Theater of Bloods with Winter. And so something that has been so fun with this iron that I didn't even realize I was doing really until until I realized it, was I was kind of subconsciously doing all of these grinds that I never did on my main and avoiding the grinds that I hadn't done before. So like, on my main, speaking of Tombs of Amasket, I did about 125, 130 solo 150s on that, just because it was a nice chill thing to hop on, just run a solo 150. And now I'm finding myself on the iron kind of not wanting to go to Tombs of Amasket because I've done so many of those. But Tob, I have like 10 KC on my main. So I dove headfirst into Tob, and it's been awesome. So this is an episode about Tombs of Amasket, but I do want to talk about Tob because that's where my iron is at. And I think for me, it's just a PSA to say, go do Tob. It's not what people's like. People want to make it sound like it is like 10 times harder than the other two raids. They want to make it sound like you're never going to be good enough to go there. Like you're going to have to, you have to start dreaming in the tick cycle. And it's just not. For one thing, you have to do Tob in a group, and that's helpful for learning because, you're going to have experienced people with you. Once again, Winter has been teaching me Tob. We've been in VC like every night, and it's just, we're laughing the whole time. We're dying. Nobody's getting mad at each other. So yeah, I don't know. I want more people to go to Tob because there's such a weird gatekeeping there that I want to see not happening anymore. Yeah, I don't know. Did you have that same experience learning Tob, Winter? What was your learning of Tob experience?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because we have a couple people that we've been doing Tob with, like you said, kind of on a nightly basis lately. A couple of them that learned Tob right when it came out, like Name with Iron, and it's interesting because I remember a few years back there was that whole efficiency over everything, if you remember that, where it was like, I think it was right around COVID, and it seems to have simmered off a little bit, and I think it's tied into the way Tob is with the elitism. Everyone kind of thinks it's really impossible to get a team, everyone's toxic, that sort of stuff. And I think over the last 2-3 years, people have really chilled out and realized hey, we all have jobs now. We're all generally mid-20s and up. We don't have as much time as we used to. So let's try and just have fun with it when we're at it. And I think that was the same thing. When I learned Tob, it wasn't really toxic at all, even on 416s, where that's the mecca of, what I always heard was a bad, environment for learning. And it really hasn't been my experience at all. Even, with and without friends, it's been pretty welcoming for the most part.
Yeah, I ran my first 416, which I guess if people don't know, 416 is just the world where people run mass free-for-all, or not mass, I guess you can't, but, they run free-for-all Tobs with, people you don't know, people you're not in voice chat with. And it has this reputation for people, essentially the logic is people want to kill you so that they have a higher chance of getting the purple. Yeah. But yeah, no, I ran one, and the first one I ever ran, I was expecting all of that. And in the first room, somebody messed up a freeze and was saying my bad and sorry and stuff. And yeah, it was not not toxic at all. It was actually a really clean raid because we weren't all messing around the whole time. When we're in VC together, we were running a raid last night where our carry died because he was eating pretzels the whole time. I think, and I think what you're talking about with people realizing, I think it's kind of that thing where when everybody knows that type of person who they have a one strike policy in their life, and they get to the point where there's just nobody left because they've cut off everybody, that isn't, they don't think is good enough for them or messed up in some minor way one time. And so, yeah, yep. I think a lot of what's happened in the community has shifted to we need to get more people here. So we have people to run this content with.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is awesome.
Yep. Big time.
And and so much of what, Jagex has been doing with improving the mid game has been really helping too. The gear that I'm going in with I guess for Tob, it's not so different than probably what it was back in the day. The Bone Dagger is a classic. RCB is a classic. I got a whip, a tent whip now.
Yeah.
But yeah, but there is the options. If I wasn't so dry at moons, there is the option for the dual mocks, and you can get that early blood moon. So you have you can do an actual melee switch before bandos, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say that's a big thing that Jagex seems to be focusing on, the mod specifically that we have right now. There are a lot of ways to get a lot of things. And what I mean by that is, let's say for the Nylo room, if you're the melee role, you got to kill all these little melee, little spiders running around, right? And so you just want the quickest weapon that you have, right? So typically you need to get some sort of a 3-tick weapon. You need to get either the ham joint, or there's a sword, a stab sword that you can get from the LMS, and that's kind of the way it's been right now. So you either get it through doing PvP sort of thing, or you get it through clue scrolls. Well, I'm bad at both of those. I'm terrible at clues, and I'm really bad at PvP. And so I was like, dang it. And then they released the dual mocks from Perilous Moons, and I go, this might actually work. And I somehow got those on my iron, and I'm going, okay, it's 4-tick, but the way that they roll 2 accuracy checks, it's actually better on the bigger, melee spawns. And so there's now 3 options for Nylos. And so it's great that they have, in so many different facets of the game, okay, I don't want to do this content. Well, you can get it through this now, or a similar weapon through this, which you may enjoy doing more.
Yeah, it's so cool how, and I guess the ham joint and the swift blade, probably that's the only thing you would ever use them for in the game. The dual mocks have a lot more utility, but it is so cool that there's items where they're both they can both do that same content. Like you're saying, you can get them in different ways, but those 2 items will probably also be, a part of a completely different piece of content that could be the best in slot, or, it's like they all have uses in multiple places, but different than the other thing. There's no true best in slot in this game, which is awesome. It's just part of what is so great about this game.
Niche scape.
It's great. When they start running out of the top tier stuff, they got to start finding little niches and stuff. But so yeah, that's been my top experience. I hit 69 KC. I have not seen it. I haven't got a personal purple yet. I'm really pushing for that, and I'm going to keep running them as much as I can. But I've also been in the I think one of the guys we raided with a lot said it best. He was kind of like, you can't, what did he say? Basically, you should take the Tob when they're there, because Tob is the only content in the game that you have to have a group to do. Even Nex, you can mass. Nex is kind of the next closest thing. But as far as I can think right now, Tob is the only thing in the game that you have to have 3 to 5 people to do. And they have to be pretty, on top of it, and for you to get a completion. So yeah, I've been taking the Tobs whenever they're available, but in my off time, I've just been ADHD scape, which has been really fun. I've been sending some Zora. I got my first Muspa kill post quest, which took me 6 minutes, which was brutal. I'm sending CG as much as I can tolerate. I don't hate CG. I think the reason that people get a bad rap, or CG gets a bad rap, is because people think of it as the Red Prison. I've intentionally made an effort to never call it the Red Prison, because I think that's just such a bad mindset for somewhere that you have to, on an Iron Man, you do have to do. I don't think, I won't make any bones about it. You have to get the BOFA. I know you can skip it, but realistically, it is so good. But that doesn't mean you have to get it before you can do anything else in the game. And so, yeah, I've been doing some Zolra, been doing some Muspa, been doing some Duke, which is completely unnecessary, but I just love that boss. And I'm also been trying to do moons. And I got spooned and imbued heart. I got spooned ranger boots, but I'm still going to complain. I am at 127 moons chest, and I still only have one item, which is supposed to be 1 in 19. So that is probably the driest kind of part of my account, which is it's brutal. But yeah, anyways, that's kind of where my iron's at right now. Hopefully next time you hear my voice, it will be talking about how I've gotten, 5 or 6 purples since, in the last episode, and at all different raids, but that's not up to me. I'm just going to keep sending them, and hopefully we'll see one eventually. So yeah, that's the update on my irons. So let's go back to Winter. I just kind of threw you in here and haven't really introduced you. So yeah, what's your kind of bullet points with RuneScape? When did you start playing and all that kind of stuff?
Oh man. Well, real quick, I started playing back in, I want to say 2005 or so. Played that for probably on and off until about 2010. Just a standard account. First 99 was doing Pyramid Plunder all the way to 99 for basically no reason, because that's kind of what we did back then. And yeah, then I came over around 2013, a few months after Old School released, and did what everyone else did and realized that I have to restart. This is bogus. I'm not doing this. And I quit again. And yeah, came back probably 2 years later, did a main, got to Zulrah, realized that PVMing's really fun, and then started an iron because my brother convinced me to do an iron, and kind of went all the way back through everything. And yeah, that kind of the pinnacle of what I thought was going to be this account was going to be Zulrah. And that kind of led right when I got to Zulrah was actually a month before Tombs of Amasket came out. So Tombs of Amasket holds a special place in my heart, as in my head at the time, I never thought I'd be able to do a raid because I didn't know people, and because I didn't think I was good enough to do it. And so this is actually a very an interesting podcast for me, because while it's not my favorite raid, it probably is the best memories I have of RuneScape, is starting out doing Tombs of Amasket for the first time. So yeah, right now let's see, I don't have any mega rares on my account, but I've kind of been grinding Tob, trying to get a scythe, because my favorite boss to do is Fasani's Nightmare. And so to make that a little bit more efficient, I kind of want to get a scythe. So having a lot of fun with all the guys in the clan, been doing a lot of Tob recently, and just trying to skirt my Iron Man responsibilities and do herb runs as little as possible.
And you've gotten just one drop at Nightmare?
I've gotten 2. Well, so it's so weird. I don't know if you've ever gotten like a drop before you realized it was like how rare it was. I got a normal Nightmare. I got a staff at like key C9, which is like, for how many people, it's to get any drop, it's 100 times how many people are in there. And there were like 8 or 9 people in there. So it's like a 1 in 900 drop. And I got it on like 8 or 9. I got the staff, which is really, really useful. I used it for the Inferno, and it ended up being like amazing. But I didn't realize how amazingly rare that was. And I started learning Fasani, and it's supposed to be like a 1 in 116 for any rare in Fasani. And I went 440 before I got a drop there. So I got the legs there. So I finally have something there. I have 2 drops total, but we're a little dry. But that's okay, because it's a fun... I compare it to Tob as far as like PVM. Like, there's so many little things you can do to add to it to make it a little faster and like min-max. So yeah, I'm having fun with it, even the dryness. So
yeah, I'm interested to do some Nightmare. When I did it on my main, like I did just like the combat achievement KC kind of a thing, and it was the kind of thing where it was like, that's a fun fight. I wish that I felt the need to go here, but the items are way too rare and they're not that useful. But I'm pretty sure since that happened, both of those things have been improved. I know the drop weights have been improved, and I believe that the usefulness of those items has improved.
It has,
to my understanding, at least.
Yep. Yeah, they've been doing. They've definitely been making an effort trying to make it more useful. You can tell. They've been making, a good example is Araxor, the new Slayer boss that they just came out with. The best in slot for Araxor is Scython Crush, or is it Mace? Either way, it's either Scython Crush or a Mace with full Inquisitors, essentially. It's also best in slot at the new Hoikoto, among a number of other things. So, because it's supposed to be like a glass cannon. It's the same strength bonus as Bandos, but it has Addy defense, basically adamant armor defense. So, it's a crush based. It's a crush based armor, so it's really cool. Pretty much everybody unanimously loves the way it looks. It's not that useful, and it's so rare. It's so incredibly rare that people just don't typically grind for it unless you have nothing else to do on an iron.
Well, I don't know if you saw it or not. I was a big fan of that Reddit post that was about combining the Inquisitors with the Justy to make like basically a tankier version of the Inquisitors, but also adding value to both of those armor sets that kind of get, looked over in a lot of ways. And I thought that was a really cool idea. It might be broken. I mean, I'm not good with stats. It's probably completely overpowered what they were proposing, but even bumping that, Addy plate armor defense up to like dragon armor defense, I feel like would be worth it and would definitely add a lot of value. I mean, coming from someone who I'm sure my first purple is going to be like a Justy Helm, and it'll be fine, but we'll push through. But you know what I mean? It's so cool. And I think whoever that pitch was, they had a really cool graphic for combining those. But anyways, yeah, it's it's weird. Yeah. When people say, knowing how rare that is, hearing someone say it has Addy plate armor defense is
kind of wild.
It is. Yeah. It is.
Trey, at first I thought you were messing with me. Do you know if I made the Reddit post to do it?
Are you serious? Wait, are you serious?
There's actually been a couple Reddit posts. I made one about a year ago, and I went into my Microsoft Paint, and I did a separate. I made like an Inquisitor's version of it, tied with Justy to make it look a little different. And I posted, yep. I did black with yellow text. I did it all. So yeah, that's funny that you see that. Yep.
So you're telling me you have seen that post?
Yep.
Okay,
So
okay. That's amazing.
That's how obsessed I am with this armor. Because it really is like they did awesome. A phenomenal job with it. It really is cool. They need to make it a little bit more viable. It might be okay with where it's at now after the changes they made recently, but making Justy as well, like you get Justy and it's almost a troll drop.
Yeah.
Right. So make it that more useful would be good.
I've had this like tier listing of, I have a specific list of which order I want my purples in from Tob. And yeah, it's like, well, Justy legs would be nice just for moons, I guess, because you want tanking armor there. And, to their credit, Justy is best in slot at moons.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They did give it. Yeah, because essentially the logic is that the way moons are designed is that the more damage you take prevents you from actually damaging the boss, because it'll like freeze your attacks or lower the strength of your attacks. So it's actually better to not take damage than to, because obviously for a long time the meta has always, in RuneScape has always been, just kill the boss before it kills you. The faster you kill the boss, the less damage you take, kind of a thing.
True.
But yeah, moons, they intentionally broke away from that. So yeah, that's, if I got Justy, that would be pretty much the one.
Eventually you are going to probably do the Inferno. I don't want to speak for you, but like the Justy Helm, the Justy Helm is a non-cheese method just to like camp a Justy Helm. And then there is a cheese method where if you saw that Reddit post with a guy, it's like, yeah, you just got to have a bulwark and full Justy and you run south. There's also that. But Justy Helm legitimately is really good for Inferno. But that's it, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. And, we were just talking about, niche items. So like, yeah, if it's best in slot at one place, then maybe that's good enough. But it is, comparing it to Tombs of Amasket, that armor set in the Missouri is much more useful in many different places. So
yeah.
if you compare it there, it's a lot less. Or from Cox, you have Ancestral. So if you were to put those three on a lineup, it definitely sticks out as the much less useful. But
you use Justy as toilet paper compared to those two.
Yeah, for real. And so going back to your account and stuff, what are your plans there? I mean, are you looking to max? Are you looking to are you just logging on to play the game?
Yeah, you've heard, you and a number of others have heard me say this. I'm probably the worst Iron Man out there. There's, I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but like, honestly, I'm just, it's where I don't like leagues that much. I love the idea of leagues, but tasks are just like, they're kind of like chores to me. If I work 40 hours, right? It's a normal day work, and then I have a kid, so and by the time I log on, I have like 2 hours to play maybe, and I just want to kind of have fun with friends and stuff. And so the idea of doing an herb run, that's fine. The idea of like going through and spending 2 hours just getting a level up just to get a level up just isn't right. It's just not me right now. And so yeah, my goals are just, for the time being, just kind of grind Araxor. I still need to get the new Fang, Araxide Fang, for the new best in slot amulet. I need to do that, and I need to do let's see, pretty much the Fang's the main thing. I need to also get a Masori helm, and I need to get a Tuminkin Shadow, and I don't really have much from Cox, so it's kind of just whenever raids are available with other people, I'll do those. But outside of that, it's a Raxor or Slayer or a little bit of Fasanis and just kind of having fun with it. So I'm not doing anything too grindy lately, because I did the Inferno earlier, about 10 months ago, and I kind of burnt myself out a little bit. I just did like 3 weeks straight and did like 2-3 hours a day until I got it. And it's like, I'm going to take a little bit to get the Calo. I don't want to grind it. Like, I don't want to do anything in the game like I did with that, because it was almost like just not fun at the end of it. So just looking to have fun with it, I think, right now.
Yeah, we just had one of our other friends, one of the other mods in the clan, just got their Infernal Cape, and everybody told him, just go straight to Calo while all your PVM skills are at their peak, and just do it. And I think he's regretting that. I don't know. We'll see. But he was telling me recently that might have been a mistake, just to go straight into the next big huge PVM grind. But maybe that works for some people.
We're all different. If there's anything I found out with this game, like we all. I was telling you before, Trey, like this is a game that like emphasizes how our minds all work differently. And some people will sit there in Lumbridge and do an extreme one chunk and kill 100,000 men in mass genocide just to get to the next tree to cut. Some people, like me, are, oh man, I haven't done an herb run in 3 weeks. We're all, and for me, I'm like, okay, Calo, it's fun content, but man, I just don't want to be in that headspace right now. And so I'm going to wait. And other people want to just get it out of the way so they have the best in slot. So,
yeah, it's funny, like that balance that we're always tipping in this game of like the grinds that you don't want to do, that you want to get over with, versus the things that you want to do, but you want those other grinds like to get out of the back of your head. Like that's been my recent thing with that, has been Demonic Gorillas, which, hey, I got 2 Zenites, so that's halfway better now. But I hate Demonic Gorillas. I don't know what it is, but they are, I don't know. I think
you're not alone.
Really, I didn't, yeah, no, I know. I think what really made it worse was seeing like Tormented Demons, and how Tormented Demons are like everything that Demonic Gorillas should be. And you're like, you go back to Demonic Gorillas and you're having to switch your combat style every 2 attacks, and it drives you crazy. And then there's no like the predicting their prayers compared to like, I'm sorry, this has been driving me crazy. Like, so when you attack a Tormented Demon, before they do any of their animation, like as they do their like whole warm up animation and stuff, if they're going to attack you with melee, they start walking at you, and they're going to attack with melee. But Demonic Gorillas, I've had so many times where I attack them and they start walking at me, and then they hit me with a mage, and oh man, it makes me so mad.
Yeah, they really do this. They really do like the game the wrong way. Like the mods, the J mods get a lot of things right, but this one they missed on because the more DPS you have, the better your account is built to deal damage, the more annoying demonic gorillas are. That's like the more they switch, and that's just not a good way to design a boss. But that's the way they did it. Try number 2 on Tormented, they nailed it. But
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think when I was doing demonics like late game on my main, I started like taking like much tankier gear to have fewer switches, and I was like, I don't want to do more DPS because if I do, then I'm just gonna have to switch my gear more often. So I did like full, not like Justy, but like Missouri, I think it was, with like just switching my weapons and my cape because it's just chiller that way.
For real, yeah.
I can't do the 6-way switch every 5 ticks.
No, it's a Slayer task. It's not meant to be that exhausting.
Oh man, yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. So that's cool. So let's move into the topic of today's episode. So, once again, this is the first time we're doing one of these I'm calling them all about, blank. And we'll see where that leads. I want it to be kind of open to any kind of whatever strikes my fancy or whatever. If I find someone that I, like is very, knowledgeable or experienced in a certain part of the game that I can bring on. We had Dakota on, and he had just finished Colo, and he was kind of much more knowledgeable about that. And then obviously Feelgood is just like the master of running multiple accounts, which his hardcore died yesterday. So he's down one account.
I didn't know that. Oh no. Rest in peace. I'll pour it out.
I don't think he basically said, "Oh, I have one less window open on my screen. That's a relief." But yeah, so this is going into kind of transitioning into the main kind of topic of today, Tombs of a Masket. So it was, we have the Chambers of Zarek, we have Theater of Blood, and then we had the Tombs of a Masket. It's 2 years old at this point, a little over 2 years old, which I guess that feels about right.
Yeah. Yep.
It's gone through some changes. It's a very interesting raid. Like general thoughts, it is probably the most hated raid by a lot of people. But it's also it's kind of it has both ends of the spectrum. Like there's so many people who, mostly because it's the only raid they know how to do, it's their favorite raid. There's a lot of people who, because it's the most recent raid, like you were saying, and I would also be a part of the group that it was the first raid they ever they were able to play around when it came out. So that also it's kind of personal to a lot of people. But as I hope we can get into, I think a lot of the things about the design are really cool and really interesting and really unique compared to the other two raids. But what was, I know you mentioned, how you kind of the same thing I was saying about it being your first raid, but what was, I don't know, what are your general thoughts about TOA?
I think like you said, it does a lot of things really well. And I think in general, they nailed it as far as a raid for what they were trying to accomplish, which, as most people know, TOB was likely, I don't want to say a failure, but for the stockholders, for a large company, not super successful, I'm sure, because there weren't many people that could get to it. At the time, it was very gatekept. It was almost like if you don't have an Inferno cape, you shouldn't be doing TOB sort of thing, from what I hear. And it's very intimidating too from everyone that kind of talks about it, that was just underneath the TOB level. And so coming from, okay, we released this raid and there were not that many people that could do it or would do it, to, okay, we want to do a very accessible raid. that people are able to learn on, and it's not intimidating, and you can do it by yourself, because a lot of RuneScapers don't like playing with people, or at least they don't think they do because they've never done it, and they're not comfortable just jumping into a chat with people. So I think from that aspect of it, invos from 0 on up to 400, very successful. Like an enjoyable raid, maybe a little long, but fun. And I think they kind of nailed it. The issue kind of stems from when you start going above the 400. That's kind of where I think most people have their issues with it.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think it's great that you bring up Tob, because I think kind of where my mind goes to, like, it's kind of the before TOA, because in a lot of ways, I think TOA, like you're saying, is a direct response to Tob. So many of the things in the way it's designed are meant to be like counterpoints to the criticisms that people have of Tob.
Yeah.
And, so recently, it's actually cool. We have a new competitor who's going to blow us out of the water, the official RuneScape podcast.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. And their second episode, they had Mod Kieran on, and he was talking about the way they designed Tob was just, they would, after work, they'd go get some beers at the pub, and they would just be like, oh, that'd be cool if this happened. And that, he said that was most of the early design of Tob, is just drinking at the bar with your friends. And I think that, so much of what Tob is, there's this concept called emergent gameplay, which is the idea that essentially they don't create like content with the idea that this is exactly how people are going to do it. They're just like, yeah, fuck it. We'll throw this at them and we'll see how they figure it out. It's not, if to use, D&D terms, they're not railroading you. It's more of just seeing what you'll do with it. And it's really interesting, doing Tob, seeing like how, pretty much every room, the strategies are kind of, janky, but like really, it's hard to put it into words how, I guess it's just satisfying. Like I've been learning the Scythe Walk, and it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel intended, because like you're moving before the attack is coming, but then the only way you did it right is if for some reason, if the poison lands where it's supposed to. But that obviously, that wasn't like, maybe it was intended, maybe it wasn't, but it feels like it's not like, oh, when this thing lands here, I'm going to stand here. Like it as opposed to, so I guess what I'm trying to say, transitioning into TOA, where everything feels much more intended and much more like, I guess refined would be a nicer way of saying it. But, so much of TOA is this thing is flying at you and you need to pray before it hits you. Like that, if RuneScape started over today, that would be every single thing in the game, because that just makes sense. When something's coming at you, you want to protect before it gets to you. You don't want to protect before the thing starts attacking. Like that makes no sense, Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, it's interesting. I think you're right. But I'd also argue that Toa is refined, but I think the fact that it is almost makes it what's kind of a little bit like in the stale, aspect of it, where, so let's say P2 wardens, where you have to go right, you have to go left, you have to go middle, and you attack the boss, and you go right, you go left, you go middle. And there aren't any mechanics or invocations you can go to change that. You have to do that. You just can make it harder or faster. So they did refine it. They made it so it's very clear what they want to do. But I think kind of some of the most fun parts of this game are when we are able to find something in the game and take advantage of it to get something positive out of it, gameplay wise. A perfect example, I think, is Olm when you run head. Kieran said in podcast that that wasn't intended. It's just the way that Olm is supposed to look. When he's doing a special attack, he looks for the person, right? And somehow some big head somewhere figured out, oh, we can make it so that he doesn't do his special attacks if we balance the room a certain way with our guys and we run and make him chase us. And that's if they had taken that out or fixed that, or that wasn't a thing, I'm like positive that would not be a lot of people's favorite part of the game or favorite raid or favorite aspect of Cox. There's a number of things, like that make RuneScape really interesting. There are a couple aspects in Toa where there is that like butterfly and a red X, and they decide to keep them in because people love them and they make the game more challenging. But yeah, for the most part, I wish there was more stuff like that in Toa, because it seems to be the things that kind of like make me gravitate toward doing the content.
Yeah, it's funny because I totally agree. I think that if the intended like gameplay loop of Olm, like if they intended for that to be the thing and they had it so that he turned his head, like, even if the fight was exactly the same, there's definitely not that feeling of, I don't know, it's a weird feeling. I feel like it existed in RuneScape a lot more than other games of kind of, I don't know if it's like getting away with it or getting one over on them or doing things that you weren't supposed to be able to do. But I think it would also, if that was the intended way of doing it, it would be a lot cleaner. It is like Olm in a way is similar to Wardens, where if you're doing it right, you are just kind of going back, middle, side kind of a thing. But yeah, with Wardens, it does feel more stale because that is because it's intended and it's very clean. Like there is, with Wardens, when it slams the ground, you see this very clean line of where you're supposed to stand, where you're not supposed to stand. And it just feels like you're kind of playing within the box. And I don't know, I guess a lot of other games, that's kind of what you do, but it does feel different when you're just kind of going through the motions that you're supposed to do, as opposed to like, oh, there's this thing that this streamer found and this is the way of doing it. And you don't even know if you're doing it right until it's done, like tick eating or something. You don't even know if you're doing it right because the game doesn't even know that you're doing it, It's interesting. And so, and I think that's why I wanted to start out with comparing TOA to TOB because of that. TOA is so much more like intended, like everything just feels intended. And it's so, but the positive of that, it is so much cleaner. Mm-hmm. I do like, something like Zabak where, it's like, it's also, I guess, consistent because like, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess it's a little bit of both, but the way that so many bosses in the game are going to be shooting attacks at you, or so many bosses in TOA shoot, they have a ranged attack and they have a mage attack, and damage is calculated on the hit. It's P2 Wardens is pretty much the same as Zabak, and obviously then there's Zabak and Wardens P3, and it's just like you kind of, it's like, yep, this is flying at me here, and it feels very like cyclical. It feels very predictable, and I think that's those people, and it is a lot of the kind of part of I think being obviously a natural byproduct of being like HLC is they've also been in the game for a long time, and so I think those people like seeing like it just felt like it was solved within the first week of coming out. And I think that was another reason a lot of TOA got a lot of hate, because it was like, you can, it's so good for beginners because it's so like intuitive to be like, okay, that looks like a magic attack and that looks like a ranged attack. And I got it. I'm good to go now. Which is how, like you were saying, that's how you should design a game. It should be intuitive. Like that's always a good thing in design is intuitive. But for RuneScape, it feels almost out of place. I don't know. It's interesting. It almost leads into a bigger conversation about all of the new content they've been releasing, because that TOA was kind of the start of this new wave of bosses they've been releasing with a lot of those same clean, refined, but potentially stale mechanics. And with exceptions, probably Kahlo, you would know more than I would about how that feels, but...
Well, yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up, because there was actually just someone in our Discord that was having problems with with Dagannoth Kings and trying to flick Dagannoth Kings, and they were there's frustration expressed on how come in certain content, like you said, newer content. Let's say Zabak, for example, he shoots out his magic attack. You can see it, and it's coming, and it's not calculated until it hits you. So the tick before it hits you, you can pray, and then the second it hits you, you can turn off your prayer, and you're protected. Whereas Dagannoth Kings, you have to pray before they do their animation, and then once you see them do their animation, you can turn it off. And it's the same with fight caves. It's the same with minions. I assume minions and like God Wars, all of them. You protect before you see the animation. It's also the same with Inferno, and it's the same with Colosseum. And so if you notice, it's the older content, except for Colo and Inferno, of course. I'll get back to that. But the newer content, like you said, it's clear. They're just trying to make it more intuitive so that newer players aren't going, what the heck? We have these prayers and people are flicking them, but I don't know when to flick them. Well, you have to like count ticks kind of, or just have a really good intuition or feeling if you're going to, try and flick the ones where their damage is calculated before you see the animation or the actual projectile. So they've clearly been trying to fix that by having them, not be calculated until they hit you. The reason why the Inferno and the Colosseum are calculated the old way is just because they're trying to keep it, the continuity with, Fight Caves, Inferno, and Colosseum are all the same wave-based content, and people are used to doing it a certain way. And so they wanted to keep true to that. And I think that's actually a really good idea and successful the way they've done it that way. But it's weird. It's one of those weird RuneScape things where you have to just kind of know this boss, damage is calculated before the animation. And this boss, damage is calculated once it hits you. So it's goofy.
Yeah, and the funny thing about TOA is that's all true, but also Akka damage is calculated before he attacks. So
Akka's a weird one.
That one is,
yep.
Yeah, but it's interesting because like you're not supposed to be able to like. Well, no, that's not true. I guess it's Akka. I think there's a time and a place for both of those. It's just weird that there's no way to know without either being told or learning the hard way. I mean, obviously people figure this out at some point. So you got to learn the hard way, which content does and doesn't. And, that leads into kind of the whole, another way that makes RuneScape so unique, how you have to have the wiki and YouTube open on the other side of your screen at all times, because it's not most of the content is not intuitive. And they've made their new content a lot more intuitive and a lot more having a lot more quality of life. I couldn't stop raving about how while Gothic sleeps, every random quest item you needed was in the room with you.
Yeah.
Like little stuff like that. And a lot of these new bosses, they've done a lot of that with. But yeah, so I think I do want to, before we get deep into TOA, I think it's fair to say, I not to speak for you, but I can say for myself at least, I do, before I say all these bad things, I do like TOA. I'm pretty much down to run a TOA anytime if I have 45 minutes, but we'll get to that. But it is one like interesting thing about TOA is how it's so stab focused. And something I've been finding on my Iron is it's hard to get an early game stab weapon. I probably need to just kind of, nut up a little bit and do like Krill for the Zamrak Hosta. But other than that, it's hard to get a good stab weapon early on compared to getting a good slash weapon or getting a good crush weapon. Which, to be fair, they've recently addressed crush weapons. But so now you got you get your dragon scimitar and then your whip, or you get your zombie axe and then your dual mox, or however it is. But yeah, that stab weapon, you're going from a dragon sword or a leaf bladed sword up to a Zamrak Hosta or a Fang. So I'm hoping with the way they've been approaching content recently, I'm hoping in the near future we get a zombie axe of stab.
Yeah, I could see that.
But,
yeah, and it seems like it really seems like they're trying to do that. It really seems like they know that like RuneScape is replayable content, and there are a lot of mains that switch over to irons once they max or however, kind of your route, my route too as well. And then they go through the game, and 3 years later, they get to the point where maybe they're like, feel good, where they go, well, I kind of want to try an ultimate. And hey, like, and actually I've started a group Ironman with my brother, and it's like, hey, the only reason I'm willing to do this is because there's all these new bosses that make no sense for me to do on my main iron because they drop nothing that I really could use, and they're too easy. They don't, but like now I just tried going and doing Scurious with as a level 35 combat, and it's kind of interesting. It's fun with all these lower level bosses that I actually am excited to do now. And I've played RuneScape before, but now there's some new things I can look forward to. And yeah, if it's as they fit in, all these little things that fit the niches, but also fill like upwards as well as across as you upgrade. Like those are all really cool things and really good for RuneScape specifically because it is such replayable content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard from as I've been on my iron journey and I've been describing it and talking about it with people, I've had a lot of kind of OGs being like, man, that kind of makes me want to start another. Even people who are late game irons have said, I kind of want to start a new Ironman because it is just completely different now than it was when I started. I mean, I think that, we recently Sebe, one of the most like accomplished Ironman accounts, it changed his whole perspective on the game. A lot of the stuff he used to complain about and be against, he's like totally for now because he started a new account, and it's like, oh yeah, that's it's nice to have that early on. It is nice for early content to not be miserable, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really.
And so yeah, I once again, I feel like I say that every episode. I love what they're doing with new content. But
yeah, it's hard.
But yeah, going back to TOA. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's kind of hard to see outside of our own little tunnel vision. I think sometimes,
Yeah.
like I know I've heard complaints about the second part of Varlamore released where it's two bosses. One of them we knew was going to be mid game. The other one we didn't. I don't think knew at all was coming. And
the Amoxicillin. Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it was kind of just dropped at us, which is actually awesome, I think, because we don't get any like unpolled things anymore. So it's kind of, and maybe they did pull like a random generic question, should we do a mid-level boss as well? But anyway, it's kind of refreshing that we just got this like random boss and we go, oh, cool. It's not game changing, so nobody really cares. So I guess they can do that. But yeah, it's like, it's fun doing that sort of stuff now. So, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I all that to say, I do love TOA. And so I broke up this kind of discussion into a few different segments. But I think the main three that I want to talk about with TOA is like what's good about it, and then the what's bad about it. I split into two sections because I think, and this is probably any kind of content, like any kind of criticism of content would be, what would I like to see changed, and what is, the ship has already sailed. But we'll get to that. But as far as like going back to just saying like what's great about TOA, I think for me, like it can't be overstated how it is objectively the best raid to start with as far as learning. If you're unfamiliar with the mechanics, there's a completely different conversation that the path I've been doing on my iron, doing Tob first because it's the most accessible gear wise. But from a I'm new to the game, I'm wanting to get into raid standpoint, it is objectively the best raid to learn. Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with the way the difficulty can just slowly scale up, and you can slowly the invocation system, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like invocations as an idea, I think invocations are going to come up in the criticisms, but it is, from a general standpoint, a good thing. I think that like the idea of having, these bosses with a ton of different mechanics and being able to kind of take those one by one and just, be like, okay, so I'm feeling confident at this boss. Let me add this extra mechanic into it. With the obvious, trade-off of that being, I have a higher chance of good rewards at the end, kind of a thing. But yeah, I think, the invocations, I from a conceptual standpoint, is a really cool idea for a raid. I'm really interested to see what they do going forward for raids with in relation to invocations. If they're going to, I think it probably goes without saying, every raid is going to have an easy, like normal and hard mode, or an entry kind of a thing, because they've, entry TOB has done a lot for getting people into TOB. Criticisms of it aside, and obviously low invocation TOA is so huge for people, because when you tell somebody like, they're like, oh, I'm just so nervous about it. Like, dude, I'll run a 0 invocation with you. You can die. You don't have to do a single damage to the boss. You can die in every room, and I can carry you through it. But also, like, you can learn it along the way, and you can even say like, hey, you got knocked to the back of the room at Baba here. If this certain invocation was on, that would kill you, but it didn't this time. So you're not dead right now. That's great. Kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. I think that's like in the positive category, because how many times, again, like we're kind of making a lot of comparisons to TOB, but like I find myself going, okay, I want to teach someone TOB. Well, I can't do it by myself. You almost need to, have like surround yourself with good players that you can trust just to take one learner, because it's so hard to get a KC with a learner. And that's inherently the problem, I think, with it. Whereas with TOA, you can just do a duo, and you can set it to what invo the person that's teaching is comfortable with. And then they know that if this person dies, which they inevitably probably will, they can carry, because TOA is that type of a raid where you can just, if you do it correctly, you're really not going to take chimp damage from anything, or not much at all, let's say. Outside of like Baba, and you can get through the raid, and they can, you both can get a purple chance. And the most important part, the learner can get the KC and not feel that bad about wasting their time, because not getting a KC, not seeing the treasure room, even if it's white, you get dunked, getting through the raid and being like, I did a TOA. Like, that's a good feeling. Yeah. And I think that's where they really did a good job with TOA, because TOB is way harder for that. Way harder. We find we have to do in our Discord, in our clan, multiple TOB workshops, because we have to have so many people on hand to be able to get one learner through, to teach people. You can't really just wing it a lot of times.
Yeah, and I feel exactly the same way. And I do apologize if it sounds like this entire episode should be called TOA versus TOB. But it is, for one thing, it's fresh in both of our minds because we've been doing it so much. But it also, I'm harping on it a lot because I think it's so true. I think so much of what TOA was a direct response to TOB. And I think that making it accessible was their number one priority because of what you said. They did not like profit from TOB because it was so inaccessible.
It's off.
But like,
sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think another big part of that, taking learners in, what makes it accessible, is it's hard to PK people at TOA. I think P2 Wardens is probably your best bet, or I guess Akka. Akka and P2 Wardens.
Some funny rooms to PK people in.
That's true. And Kefri, I guess Kefri, Akka, and P2 Wardens are your pretty much your only ways to PK people.
There's
obviously there's ways in every room.
Yeah, but it's harder to accidentally.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm trying to say accidentally. Whereas, and even those things, there's not nearly as much. Pretty much everything in Tob, if you make a mistake, it will punish your teammates. And that also, in addition to that, starts like this death spiral of, you're damaging your teammates, but also you're making the room harder and making it much more difficult to complete. Whereas, like you're saying with TOA, you can die in every room and still get to see a chest because it's pretty much, I don't know, it's weird. It's almost, in a weird way, TOA is kind of like Moons, where it's almost like you're fighting the boss solo with a group.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is also a very valid criticism, that it isn't like a team group based raid, as opposed to even Cox is like for Ulm, you kind of do have to split into your roles. But yeah, there's no like roles at TOA. There's no, I'm trying to think of examples of mechanics where you have to have multiple people on the same page for things. I guess, the like getting the warden skulls, you have to kind of split up for that. But even that, if you're in like a group of like 4 people, like 2 people could do all those skulls in time if somebody messes it up.
Mm-hmm.
But so all that to say, people, in addition to it being more accessible, experienced people are way more open to taking learners, like you're saying, because you're not like, oh man, this is going to be a waste of my time because they're going to die and it's going to cause me to die. It's more of, these rooms will take a little bit longer, but we can still get the KC.
Yeah, so true. And yeah, I again, I'm same way. Like this is supposed to be about Tombs of the Masket, but like you said, Tombs of the Masket cannot be looked at in a vacuum, like you said, because it really was affected by everything that Tob did. One difficult thing from Tob, and I'll explain how this relates to TOA in a second, but difficult thing for Tob is if you die, a learn will die a lot. If you die, then when you get to the supply chest, so like for those of you that have done TOA but not Tob, you get these 2 points where you get to buy supplies, right? You get a certain amount of points, but you get less points when you die. And if you die, like, they're every 2 rooms, right? So if you die for both rooms, which for a learner, that's not that difficult, you're getting like virtually no supplies. And now you were cut off, because you died in the room, you got less experience with it. And now they cut your other leg off because you get less supplies. And you're also a learner. And so they took that in TOA and they decided, well, no, it's not going to be like that. If you just get through the room, even if you get carried, you get the same supplies as you would if you hadn't died, so that you're not constantly handicapped throughout the raid as you're learning it. And I think it's a really good thing that they did that, because, again, like learners, you want to make learners more frustrated and make it difficult to learn new content. You want to make it easier to learn new content. At least in my opinion, I think that's a good change that they made there.
Well, and not to mention, the biggest turnoff to learners is if they feel like they caused other people to like wipe. Like if you die and as a learner, you're gonna die, and then you're gonna sit as a ghost in TOA while they finish the room. And then once they finish the room, it's going to be like, oh man, that's, that sucks. But, we're good to go now. And it's kind of funny. But yeah, if you die and this death spiral starts and your team wipes at Tob and you feel like you're responsible for that, even though it's your first KC, that you're never going to want to do that again. You're never going to want to raid again. And it's going to turn you off to PVM. It's going to turn you off to group content. And I had a point in Tob at like 50 KC where I stopped for 2 weeks because I accidentally PK'd my group. And it was just because I was trying to learn how to tank. And I just did it wrong. And I killed the whole group and I felt like terrible. And I just didn't want to do the content for a while. And that's okay. I don't think that's a bad thing. But it is just an example of how, like, if you're not that motivated to get back in there, you may just never go back in. So, whether that's a good thing to have in TOA or a bad thing to not have in TOA, like, the
that's debatable, I guess, but like it is a factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I think invocations, I mean, that was kind of all a roundabout way of talking about invocations. And accessibility, I think, yeah, as far as the good parts of TOA, the accessibility is by far, I think, the biggest achievement. And a little side part of that also, I think, is accessibility does lead people to do the other two raids as well, and more in-game content. That the confidence of
that's huge.
I can raid, and I going back to the beginning of the podcast, I do want to just I keep hammering the drum of TOB is not that much harder than an expert TOA. I know a lot of people balk at that. There's a lot of differences, and there's a lot of things that are important and different to learn about it, and it will kill you in a lot of very punishing ways. But from a baseline mechanical standpoint, if you can TOA, you can learn to TOB. So yeah, the accessibility of it is very good. One of the notes I had I think this is kind of interesting, and this applies to TOB, but also to TOA that I like. I put consistent difficulty, which is mostly just a criticism of chambers, because I'm always turned off from chambers because it feels like it's really easy and then it's really hard.
Yeah, I could see that.
Which I don't know. Maybe that's with experience that changes, but every time I've gone on a learner chambers, it's like, yeah, we'll do the rooms. And then you get to Ulm and they're like, all right, get out your notepad. We're going to start just throwing 100 mechanics at you.
That is what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think TOA, I think there's definitely probably a pretty universally agreed like difficulty ranking of the bosses. But for the most part, they each have their own kind of unique mechanics. They're each interesting in their own way. And I, for the most part, enjoy all 5 of the different, the rooms and the bosses.
Yeah. I called.
So that's not it. Go ahead.
Just to say, I call TOA like a really good like vanilla ice cream. Yeah. Like it's not gonna throw anything crazy at you, but like it's like you said, it is really consistent. It's not going to be the most exciting thing, because I think that like the exciting things for a lot of people and why they like the Ulm fight so much and the top fight, we kind of touched on it before, is just like it's the variables. Specifically, let's say with Ulm, the variable like if you said sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it's really hard, and it's in my experience it's because if you have someone that is really really experienced with how to mage skip and control Ulm's head, so that nobody gets special attacks, then it's a really easy fight. Or the melee hand will get it. But like if you're running head as a learner, which is typically the rule, you just run back and forth. That's pretty much all you do. Maybe a little prayers, flipping. And then when you go to do the mage hand or the melee hand, you're going to have a little bit of specials you have to deal with. But for the most part, if someone knows what they're doing, it's going to be pretty easy. But if you're someone that does not know what they're doing, or if there's someone that is else in the raid and they're kind of messing up what the guy that knows what he's doing is trying to do, it's going to be a really messy raid, and you're going to have multiple deaths, and it can be crazy. And it's kind of the same for Verzik, where the variable is the tank. It's also what makes it fun, I think, but it's also what makes it way harder, because there's different ways to tank. Some people will tank where they run underneath her and then she's constantly moving around the whole fight. And so other people are having to move around, and they're, then these crabs come and spawn. And, those are another variable that, who are they on? And, oh, they're on me. Oh, no, they switched last second and went to the person next to them, and they didn't see them because they weren't on them before. And, that, again, can be a frustrating thing, but it can also make it really exciting because it's a randomized variable. And TOA doesn't really do those things that either of those raids kind of have as their selling points a little bit that make them exciting and fun and difficult. They just kind of seem to ramp things up higher, but you're forced into this, lane of what you kind of have to do to beat the boss. So, I mean, Is that kind of your experience, Trey, with them? Like I find myself going, I like Toa, but it's going to be about 3 minutes of doing the same thing right now at the end of Warnings. And I don't have to think too much. I just need to not die.
Yeah. It's funny while you're talking, I'm thinking about how, I'm kind of thinking back to the Moons of Peril comparison because, in a sense of like, it's consistent. Also, like the consistency of it also applies to like, the idea that it's kind of the same fight for you, even if you are more than the other two raids. If you're with someone who's super good and super experienced, there's a lot less of things that you like with other raids. There's things that you like don't have to do or like mechanics that are skipped. But with TOA, like Baba, for example, Zabak, for example, like you still running into the room, you're still shooting the boss and reacting to the mechanics. Like the waves affect everybody. The roar affects everybody. Like, yeah, they can do the poison for you. Whereas I feel like Toa has a lot more of that than like the other two raids. There's things where it's just like, yeah, we'll go do this. Like we'll do this mechanic and you just stand over here. You just keep attacking the boss. Like, like freezing at Maiden, for example.
Yeah.
But the consistency of TOA is that even if you are with experienced people, you're still participating in the room in the sense that the mechanics don't change like specifically to certain people. It is the same. And that kind of does I think the kind of overarching theme of kind of what we're saying is the consistency leads to the staleness because you get into those higher invos and you're still doing the exact same thing. Whereas doing all these TOBs I've been doing, every raid I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to learn this new thing this time. I'm going to try to learn scythe walking was every raid for, the past like 20 raids we've been doing, and I've gotten better at it and I've improved at it. But yeah, with that's still there with TOA, but it is like you do kind of plateau, and we're going to have a very, very much to say about why the invocations don't add those kind of things to keep that learning experience going. But we're still in the nice section.
I should apologize too, because I realize a lot of my things are probably coming from like I've done a decent amount of TOA, and like the more you do, of any content, the more it's gonna seem a little bit less fresh. And I do want to kind of touch base on like, I really think it does a lot of things really, really well. Like I think they have a lot of really good like movement things in Toa. The beginning or the puzzle for Zabak where they do the like sepulcher run through. That's really cool. It teaches people kind of like timings and like how to run, or how at least you run with True Tile in RuneScape. And I think for Toa, it's probably a lot of people's first experiences with stuff like that. I think they do a lot of stuff like that. Even in like the Akka fight, you have to do the memory puzzle, and you have to get pretty good at running around, and the movement base and how it works and the timings and all that. You have like you said, Zabak, like you've got poison you've got to avoid. You've got to get behind this boulder, but you can't run through poison, and you better get there quick, otherwise, you're going to get hit for some massive damage. Baba, there's banana peels that they throw off that you can't hit. There's a lot of really like good little things that they throw in there. That's that kind of like helps keep it fresh and stuff like that, because that stuff's all for the most part randomized. And I think a lot of the randomized stuff, like I said before, is a really good way to keep things fresh, because you can't just do the exact same thing every single time. Stick on this square and you'll never get hit, stuff like that. While it makes it easier, it's not more fun necessarily. So I think it does a lot of movement stuff well. And there's a lot of like gear swapping with Akka at, that is really paramount in a lot of like late game content. So it's good that they get people going to fat. There's a lot of prayer flicking. So they do a lot of things really, really well. And like I said, it taught me how to do most of that. My only experience was Zulrah before that. So, learning any sort of movement was like pretty much from Toa, how I learned a lot of that stuff. So, Yeah, I like it was so exciting, so incredibly exciting looking back at when I started it. Like my first purple chest, there after like beating my head against the wall, trying to just get up to a 150 invocation with my stupid rune crossbow. Like there's the fact that I could get through a raid and can get a purple after 30 some raids with a rune crossbow at Wardens is like, I think that's a good thing. I think you should be able to do that. And it felt hard, but the invocations allowed me to it wasn't so frustrating because I could kind of tailor the invocations to where my account was to make it less frustrating. And that is a super important thing.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things about the individualized invocations is you can say like, I haven't really figured out Akka yet, so let's leave those invocations off. But I'm doing pretty good on Zabak, so we can turn more Zabak invocations on.
Yeah, it's huge. It's really important.
Yeah, I wish if I could turn off some maiden invocations, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, right. I know, and so I think it does a lot of things really well, like that. Trey, I'm curious of your perspective from someone that had done Toa on a main and a lot of other content. I mean, you had done a lot of PVM on your main, and then you went to this account. What did you feel as not a learner, but someone whose account was kind of stuck in probably, I'm guessing, like 100 to 200 range for invos?
Oh, yeah, for invos. Yeah. Oh, man. So that gets into the bad category, but yeah, no, that is, so I'm going to put a pin in that because the answer to that question is firmly in the bad category. Because I will get to that. That's great. I want to touch on a couple of other things just real quickly before we move into the badness, because I do think there's a couple other things that are really, really unique about TOA that I really like. One thing I think is really great is how the design of it, where you have the 4 rooms, the ability to choose your own path, I think is really cool. For 2 reasons. The first reason is that does allow for some of that emergent gameplay. It allows for different metas. You have people who are staunchly, Baba first. Then you have the less experienced Baba first people who are just like, can we just get the monkey room over with so we can, then we can enjoy the rest of the raid. And I think that probably, at least in our clan, the pretty accepted meta is, Zabak first, but there is that variability to maybe there's some strategies, maybe, for a lot of people, they want to do Baba first so they can pre-pot an anti-venom and get through the monkey room and not have to worry about getting venomed. Just something as simple as that can change the whole, course of the raid. And then, you get your salts halfway through. So maybe I want to be salted for this room.
That is true.
Yeah. I think that, that being unique to, you could almost, you can't really make the argument for Cox. I guess if you scaled long enough, you could say you could choose the order of your rooms, but being able to just do that on the fly, and I don't think it's very rare, but there is an argument that you could even have strategies where you go in. I guess with Walk the Path, it does happen somewhat often where it's like, okay, well, maybe halfway through the raid, we're going to decide to go to this room instead for whatever reason, which I guess, that's pretty much just if something levels up.
Yeah.
With Walk the Path.
Keep you on your toes. And I like
yeah.
that.
But so the other part that's really great about choosing your own path or having individual rooms is when you get a learner, and this is especially for Akka, you can tell them, hey, just go in on a 0 embo and go straight to Akka and work on that one. Like you can work on the individual bosses besides Warden, obviously, but you can, focus on, I tell people whenever we're learning, we don't do feeling special. And I say, hey, like all you got to do is do a, 15 embo raid, only feeling special, go straight to Akka and just practice that timing. And you can die as many times as you want and just keep trying it. But once that timing clicks for you, then you're going to be good to go. Like if I could do that when I was trying to learn the Scythe Walk at Zarpus. That would have been so nice. I mean, obviously there's sims and stuff, but like just being able to go straight to that room and just practice it without having to do, 4 other bosses before it is really cool. I think it really just kind of leads into that overarching accessibility of it. And I think it's a really cool way to make a raid that is easier for people to learn.
Yeah, and it's true. And it's not just a noob thing either, because Butterflying is an advanced strat and Red X is an advanced strat. And they're two of the bright spots that many consider, for Toa as well, of things that we've, as a community, learned to manipulate, and they make it really fun. And for myself, when I learned them, I definitely took that. I ran in, and I just sat there in a 0 invocation in Akka, and I ran around until I ran around the right way. And for Red X, I did the same thing. I went into Baba, and I had unlimited deaths, and I just sat there until I got it. And that's super valuable. So even like people that have been playing a really long time, I know like a lot of people that do 300 to 400 Toas, and they still don't know how to Red X, or they still don't know how to Butterfly. And it's not that they can't, they just, haven't gotten around to doing it. But that just kind of shows that like there's a lot of people in this game that can take advantage of, Toa's benefit in that regard, where you get to choose what you want to do, and you don't have to go to some random colosim.com or whatever to use another website to practice the simulator. You get to do it in the actual raid, in the actual game, with the actual feeling on your account, and it's great. It's really useful.
Yeah. No, yeah. I will learn Red X. The problem with it, the thing that undoes everything I'm talking about is if you want to learn Red X, you still have to go through the monkey room first, which is annoying.
Not anymore, though.
It's better now.
Since they redid it.
Yeah.
I people are disagreeing with me. I think it's an enjoyable room now, and I'm crazy for saying that, but it really is like a pretty enjoyable room now, especially if you're doing it with multiple people. It's really short, and you want to hit like most things.
Yeah, it's 1,000 times better now.
But before,
I'm still bitter. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm so bitter from before. I'm still mad about it. So the last thing I have in the good section, and this is actually, I don't think this is agreed upon universally to be a good thing. But I think one of my favorite things about TOA is that it's soloable, more so than the other 2 raids. Chambers is soloable at a high level, but TOA is soloable from 0 imbo. And I understand that you're losing the concept of like an MMO raid where you have a bunch of people running in and fighting these bosses. But from just a, pragmatic standpoint, it's very nice to not have me and Winter sitting in a VC being like, can we get a 3rd or 4th person to Tob, and nobody's on? Okay, I guess we go do something else. TOA, we have multiple people in our clan. They hop in, they say, Toa anyone? And if nobody replies, they just go run it solo. And if people reply, they take them with them.
And the limit is 8.
It's nice to know that, Yeah, you have a higher ceiling too.
Yeah, you're not cutting people off,
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. That Top's the word for that one. But it is it's just nice to know. And then, like I said, I did I think like 120 solo TOAs on my main, because it was just, I would come home from work, I'm not really in the mood to talk to people. And I just hop in and I run a raid, and that was great. So yeah, that's definitely a positive to me, but I understand there are people who don't like that. And part of that is because Toa doesn't have those defined roles like Tob specifically. And so you don't have like, you're not like relying on people and to do those different roles. It's just like, it's one more body in the room, and the room will scale to meet that. And it's almost no different if you have one person or 4 people for most of the raid. But do you put that in the good category, it being soloable?
I do. Yeah, I big time, because half of mine are solos, half of mine I would say are probably solos. And the way that the purple's calculated, if you have to go with a group and a lot of the people I know have shadows. I don't have a shadow though. So if I'm doing a 45-minute raid and I guess I can split if we get a purple, but I'm an iron, so my iron doesn't benefit from them more likely getting the purple than me because they have a shadow, which is 4 times, the magic damage. It's even better in the raid than it is outside of the raid, which is stacked outside of the raid already. The fact that I can go in and do purples or, feel like at least if someone's getting a purple, it's gonna be me because I'm the only one in here. And that's even if it doesn't calculate out mentally, I think sometimes that's a good thing. Because
especially on an iron.
Yeah, when you constantly, you've seen it lately with Tob, when you constantly see purples in other people's names and you're like, man, I'm dry. Why is it never me? It can sometimes wear on you a little bit because, it's tough.
Hey, let's not get carried away with constantly seeing purples. I haven't constantly seen purples. We could use a few more of them. I apologize. Even if they aren't my name.
I have our last purple where I got the one drop you wanted, the Sync Staff, and it should have been you.
Oh God!
But it's So I would put that in the positive category. But I don't think all raids should be like that. I think just one is good.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, on a larger scale, I think it's interesting because I think there's definitely there's a lot of people who would say that there should be, and I've seen it a lot, from the community, Reddit and whatever, but like people say there should be content in this game that requires a group. And there's people who say every content in this game should be soloable, like within reason. Tob is not soloable, even though people have solo completions, or same with Nex.
Not without reason.
And I mean, Nex is a weird one because it kind of, the idea of massing something kind of blurs the lines of that. But it's interesting. Yeah. Cause like I said, it really just kind of goes down to the theme of a raid, like it's a raid. It's a bunch of people running in and, attacking something. And it just feels like a PVM encounter when it's a single thing. But from a pragmatic standpoint, I do love it.
I mean, the JMAs have found kind of the way, I think, to make that so that you can solo it, but you don't. And it's just making sure that when you do solo it, you can do it, or, you allow a little bit of framework for like a cold one to be able to solo. That's fine. And same with Nex, where you don't make it so that the meta is to do it solo, because Nex, you can duo Nex. But you get a better chance for a drop if you trio Nex. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
You're better off. I think with Tob, technically a duo, you have a better purple chance, but it doesn't seem to, entice people to do duos.
Yeah.
Do duos, but entice them, entice the best raid for the drop to be, the group size you want. And then you'll probably have people gravitate toward that.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the idea that, I hope that every raid is like actually possible, or every content I like they did every content in the game. It's possible to solo from a stance of like for the HLC for like challenge, they challenge themselves to do that. I hope they don't ever have mechanics where it's like literally like almost like, turning the keys on the nuke. Like if you don't have 2 people here standing at the key, it's not going to work, kind of a thing. But I guess they'd probably find some way around that.
They'll just do like a DKs where you gotta drop the rock. Here's a pet rock. You don't have to have a friend come in and let you in. You just get a pet rock.
Summon my thrall to stand there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't think.
All right,
just real quick to touch on that. I don't think that I don't even think they need to leave room for it. I think they just need to make it as hard as it possibly can, and we will find a way. Not me, not you.
Yeah.
Someone will find a way to solo it. Because I remember when the Theater Blood came out, I think it was Ash, and again, it's like 7 years ago or whatever, but he said, this is not soloable. You cannot solo this. You will not be able to solo this. maybe
yeah.
2 or 3, but you won't be able to solo this. And here we go. Somebody's done it in hard mode now. So, I mean, well, the community will find a way.
Yeah. Oh man, I think I saw somebody on Reddit who did it on mobile, solo Tob. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you like TOA, this is where you can turn the podcast off. But I think it's time for us to pull our pants down and take a massive shit on this raid. I feel like we've been holding back. I'm sorry, I'm joking. But yeah, so moving into the negatives of TOA, I think there are a lot of them. And I do think that you probably noticed with the positives, there's obviously kind of gray areas in them. And I think with the complaints, the negatives, there will be gray areas as well. But, we just spent, 30 minutes talking about the good parts of TOA. So don't think that we're just, hating on it. But yeah, so for me, I was trying to be clever. So I put my 3 problems with TOA into 3 categories. I have purples, puzzles, and pacing.
An alliteration, really.
Yeah. I had to do it. So yeah, I think that, and it didn't start with a P, but I think, we started off with the good things with invocations. So let's go into invocations on the bad things. And I think the invocations, the biggest complaint, I think the biggest problem with TOA overall. Yeah. So I think the best place to start with the negatives is the invocations, because for me, it kind of everything that I would say almost everything that I have to complain about TOA. I keep doing that. Everything I have to complain about TOA is tied up in the invocations. And the baseline of all of it is the principle. And I've found that a lot of people don't know this from the get-go, but the idea that whenever you turn up an invocation, no matter what kind of invocation it is, it will cause everything in the raid to scale up in their defense and the damage that they do and their health. So this is where I'll take that pin out of my rant. So that is what has caused me to be locked into sub 200 raids on my iron, because I'm not limited by my skill. I'm limited by my DPS because of that. So even if I could turn on enough, and I had the ability to do a 400 level raid because I was able to, get out of the way of all the damage and do all these mechanics and stuff, I'm still limited because now the boss's defenses are, through the roof. And if I do make a mistake, they're going to, hit me a lot harder. And even the chip damage will be higher. And the fights, because their health is so much higher, the fights will take significantly longer. And I'll run out of resources. And yeah, I think my overall biggest problem with TOA is that you're not limited by your skill. You're limited by your DPS and gear, which is the kind of thing on this podcast and, in the community at large, people are always telling newer players, like, it's not about your gear. You don't need to buy gold. It's about your skill, and also your levels is important too. But overall, I've proven with this Iron Man that you can do content way sooner than you think you can, that I thought I could on my main. And then, in my opinion, TOA just kind of shits all over that, because now it's kind of, what people talk about in gaming in general. Like, the worst way of scaling up bosses is just giving them higher defense, hitting harder, and a bigger health bar.
They literally just stole the book, a page out of the KQ book that everyone hates.
Yeah. And so I think that, and that's not to say, like, obviously the higher imbos should be more difficult. And I think that, so something that we talked about before the podcast, the biggest crime of TOA, and I think something that is almost, I'm not going to say it's like a lie, but something that was misleading is I think everybody thought that the invocations were going to change over time. If, even if it was like, oh, there's a new batch of them, or these ones are being phased out, or even just like, this is the imbo of the week or something. But the idea that the raid would be Like the idea of it would be like let's say that a 300 is the same level as like a normal Taub or a normal Cox. But you could keep scaling it up and things would just get crazier and more chaotic. Not just, that's the thing. A 500 level raid is still just as stale as a 150 for the most part. But you're just having to, you're just having to hit them harder and longer.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest crime.
Yeah, I totally agree because like at the end of the day, like you want to be challenged based off of your skill. And that's kind of what makes it a high ceiling, I think. When it's, if you're better than me, you can do higher invos. Not if you're sort of better, but your account is more stacked, and it just kind of takes away the skill of it. And it, like kind of like it adds the next factor a little bit. Like, oh, you raised it up this high. Well, you're going to be chug and bruise, bro, because if you can't red X, even if you can sometimes, like you're going to be taking damage from this, or this. And you're going to be taking a lot of damage. And it's also going to take a lot longer.
Yeah, even if you do it perfectly, it's going to take twice as long. Well, not twice, but it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah, indeed. So that's the main issue. And it's like, it's not really an issue until you start getting, over 400, the 415s people run a lot of times, or 410s or whatever. Like those aren't so bad, but it can get pretty annoying up in the higher invitations, even with a shadow from what I'm told.
I see that. I guess, yeah, I would disagree just because that is exactly the wall I've hit on my iron is that like I can perfectly avoid this damage, but when I do hit the boss, it's a 0 every time because their defense is so high. And that's just been so frustrating because of my gear and levels.
Well, that kind of leads into the like, I see two issues there. Yeah, there's that issue, but there's also the Fang issue, which you don't have the Fang.
Yeah.
And I went like not that many, but I did a lot of raids without Fang. And it is, even with that tent whip, man, I was using a tent whip. It was not great. It was pretty stinky. And so if you're having to do that without a Fang, like you like you said, you're hard capped pretty much at a certain point. Doesn't matter your skill.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's just this. It's sad because I think everything good I say about everything good I said about invocations is undercut by, yes, the invocations you can do are limited by your abilities as far as like you're going to learn to do these mechanics and then you can have that invocation, you're good to go, and you start adding new mechanics in there. But then there's this undercurrent of, this asterisk of like, yeah, if your DPS is high enough, if your account is progressed enough, and that plays into like when people in our clan run raids, like I don't want to run a 300, even though I know I'll be fine because I'm going to have so few points. Because even though I'm doing the mechanics properly, I'm not hitting the boss. I'm not getting any points. From an Iron Man perspective, yes, we're going to see more purples overall, but it's going to be so rare for that to be in my name that like it's, what's even the point?
Yeah, if you're a main, it's worth doing it because you're going to get split out from the whole team and you get the same amount of money as everyone else, regardless of if you have a better chance or worse chance to get a purple. But yeah, if you're an iron, and a lot of people are irons nowadays, it's just not worth it unless you can find, someone your level, which makes it kind of tricky because a lot of times like the thing you do is and it's in a lot of different clans. You just shout out, anybody want to do a Toa? And, I feel for you because if I had your account, I said, anyone want to do a Toa? And two guys with shadows and fangs go, yeah, man, what invo? Yeah, I'll do a 200. Well, even at a 200, you're Snow Dog. And I can't really get that purple. You could, but you probably not.
Yeah. And then that's killer too, because I'll even say 150 Toa anyone. And people with shadows will be like, yeah, I'll run a 150. And it's like, okay, well, you're still going to get 80% of the points. And so you're still going to steal that purple in a sense. And I hate that. I hate the idea that, in a similar way to not wanting to TOB with people because they could PK the whole raid, I don't want Toa to feel like I don't want to raid with people because they're going to steal my purples. Like I want to raid with anybody and everybody all the time, kind of a thing. So I don't want any kind of game mechanic that will prevent me from like you were saying with the meta. Like I don't want the meta to be to go solo, but for a mid-level Iron Man, if I want to do Toa, the meta would be for me to go solo.
Yeah.
And so it's annoying.
Yeah. And it's it can be kind of fun if you're like close in DPS with them. Like for example, I when I was first learning Toa, I was doing it with my brother C Dibbler, and he has a T-bow. And it's like, okay, well, Zabak, I mean, he's using a T-bow, I'm using, well, back in the day I would have never, gotten the MVP in the room, but now I have a Bofa and I'll get it maybe 1 out of like 8. But at least like it's kind of close, and I feel like I can. And hey, maybe I'll send off a little. Hey, go to that one over there. That I'll throw a what do you call them? The little water pools, and I'll burst it over there. Well, I'll send him to the wrong one so that he dies because he's my brother and he deserves it. But there's little fun things you can do like that. But like you're not going to do that with a random person because that's cruel. So for the most part, you just like you're better off sometimes not raiding with those people, and that doesn't feel good because they're still your friends, but it's a 45-minute raid and you want it to be worth it.
Yeah, and it's probably beneficial to clarify because I didn't know this until I was getting into TOB. For TOB specifically, I Chambers is kind of the same problem where as far as your personal points. But my understanding of TOB, and maybe I'm wrong, my understanding at least is that you have an MVP with an increased chance of a purple, and then it's the same chance for everybody else in the raid. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. I guess I'd have to confirm it, but my understanding is the same thing where, MVP is the best chance and all the other people have the same chance. So you're, in that regard, one thing they did right, because, you're not, like a learner could still get a purple. And you're not going to have to go 150 of them without getting a purple because you're getting like a 1% chance and the other guys are getting all of it. Which, I mean, maybe, maybe these J-mods are smarter than we give them credit for. Because, the thing with TOB is, you have that equal chance of a purple, but you can't just be carried because of what we were saying earlier about, contributing to your team and causing wipes and stuff. So, maybe that was, maybe it's all part of their grandmaster plan. I don't know, but
I'd like to think so, but
So apart from the scaling, the negatives of like imbos themselves, I think that, there's some nitpicky ones. There's some imbos that nobody uses because they're just objectively bad. I think probably the biggest complaint is like, as far as that skill ceiling goes, I think it's kind of criminal that insanity is called insanity because it's really not insanity. No. I think that, I've heard stories from people when Toa came out, being like, oh man, insanity is impossible, and within like a week, it's like, oh, it's like 1 tick faster. I think that I wish there was an invo. I wish there were more invocations. I wish there was one for every room I wish there was an actual like insane, the sicko mode invocation for every room that just made it like insanely hard. But had a, really high, point multiplier or whatever. But for the most part, I think the invocations, I think it just goes back to the scaling thing. I think people are not, for the most part, besides, like something like feeling special, or insanity. Besides those, the majority of people are never held back by their ability to do the mechanics of the invocations. They're held back by the scaling. And that just when you propose invocations, like the concept of that with these different mechanics for people, and then the next thing you say is that people are held back by the scaling and not by the different mechanics. That just sounds like such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it does. And I think it was on a Sebecast. Kieran was saying how he They tried invocations in a couple settings, Toa and Coliseum, and they've never quite hit it on the mark. And so he kind of mentioned that they were likely not going to go back to them, or maybe not for a while. Which, you know, I don't think they did a bad job with invocations once they like dialed them in. They had to kind of revise a few of them, both in Toa and in Kalo. But they do make it interesting. We said some positives about it. I do like the fact that they have invos. I just don't understand why they haven't added more. And I can think of a number of them off the top of my head that would be better. And you could even hard cap them so they don't have, they don't scale up all the mechanics, like the defense and the hard hitting and, health and HP. Like you could just add mechanics for mechanics and add the infos to them. Like you could make the raid better by doing stuff like that. It doesn't seem like it'd be that big of an an undertaking. I mean, it'd be a decent, but like it's a raid. Like if you can make it so the high end, folk are happy and you don't have to make a whole new raid, it might be worth it.
Yeah, it's the definition of like in-game content. It should be the thing that people are, but those in-game HLC players are just going back to Inferno and Top because they max out their skill ceiling so fast at TOA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get the purples, but at what cost? It's your sanity if you're doing, like I watched, what's his name? There's a Ultimate Iron Man that did like 700 of them. It's like 410s or something like that. Tried to get his shadow, and it's like, oh, good God, man! How did you do that? Like this, just you'd see him. He has hundreds of KC at that info, and he's still getting stacked at some points. And there goes 35 minutes of his life, and the intense focus you have to have. Oh, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I think stale is a good word because it's not like boring. It doesn't become AFK. You still have to pay full attention, which I think, in my opinion, I think the worst content in this game is the stuff that's you have to pay full attention to that isn't interesting.
Yeah.
Shout out Demonic Gorillas again.
Shout out.
And I will say this is at the risk of this being the longest podcast we've ever released. I do have a list of a bunch of fun invocations I've made up that if we have time, we'll get to at the end. But yeah, I made a whole list of them for every room, just as an example of like, this is what you could do with this. Like this could be more,
Yep.
And on a side note, I don't know. I would be interested to hear some feedback. I've never seen a podcast and been like, that's too long. I'm not going to listen to it. Within reason, and also like if it's never mind. But
I'd be interested in that too, actually, because I listen to podcasts so I do carpentry and I listen to podcasts like 7 hours a day on my 8-hour day. And so if there's a podcast that's about RuneScape that is 4 hours long, it's like, oh hell yeah, I can just not have to switch podcasts for 4 hours. Great. So I enjoy them. But
exactly.
I know some people might not.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll get back to that. So, yeah, invocations, that is... I think that was supposed to be the pacing. I actually don't remember what pacing. I think... but my other two Ps...
What were they again?
I think that was supposed to be pacing. It was purples, puzzles, and pacing.
Puzzle, yep. I think it might have started off with purples.
Okay, so... purples is interesting. So... There's a lot to say about the negatives of the purples at top. I think there's been a lot of problems, and there's a lot of facets to it. I think, one of the big ones is that you can get purples on a 0 invo, ostensibly an entry mode or a learner.
Technically.
Which technically, well, you can get a Fang or a Lightbearer?
At 50.
Oh, is that 50?
Yeah,
okay.
50 to 150. Which is still very, I mean, people are very hot about that still, but.
Yeah. Well, and I think and so it sounds like maybe you're not as critical of that as I am. I think,
I am.
Okay. I think it's an absolute tragedy that the best, I think you could probably say the best non-mega rare melee weapon in the game is 9 mil. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Don't get me wrong, but I think it has a lot more to do with high-end players getting dupes more so than 50 invo people getting fangs. But I do think I don't know. I think you should be able to get every gem in your thread, but I think it's ridiculous that you can get a purple before a normal mode, a 150. But would you agree or disagree with that?
I don't find it. I don't know if I go so far as to say it's ridiculous, but I think that the ones they chose are definitely ridiculous. Like Lightbearer is tattooed in everyone's head is just like kind of a shitty drop, like it's not that good of a ring. But like legitimately, if it were just rare, it could easily be a 200 mil ring. Like if it were 1 in 12 drop and it wasn't farmed as much, that's the other thing. But like for what it does, is incredibly busted. Like it's so good.
Well, yeah, if you can just remove the GE price from both of those items, they are top, like they're best in slot for so many things. They are incredibly powerful items.
Yeah, I would consider the ring. Like if I had to, like if I'm looking at my Iron Man account and there's like something that I'd have to like this or that to keep, like, I mean, I would keep the ring over either of my Bandos Tassets or chest plate, easy. I would keep it not over like a Saturated Heart, not over a Bofa, but like, I mean, it's kind of in that range. Like, I'd probably take my Sang over it, but barely. Like, I mean,
if
very, very useful.
Yeah, and if you narrow that down to the ring slot itself, it probably like as far as where rings are used the most, it's probably number one, like Ultor / Berserker ring, and then number 2 would probably be Lightbearer, and number 3, maybe Suffering. I don't know, but like I feel like besides places where you're using the the Ultor / Berserker ring. And obviously DT2 has improved the other rings, but I still think that like as far as how many encounters you're going to be using this ring over the others, I think Lightbearer would be number 2.
Yeah, and obviously application, pending, but like, yeah, it's just where it's good is really, really, really good. Because specs are such an important thing for this game. And
then there's the Fang.
Yeah, then there's the Fang. Cut me off, but like. The Fang, like if it were up to me, I probably would have made. It's tough. I think like it makes sense that it's probably like a 1 in 12. It shadows 1 in 24 if you get a purple. I think like 1 in 12 makes sense. The issue being, I know, don't build the game around irons, but the issue being, they made the raid. Like, the Fang's kind of a Band-Aid for the high invo and high defense and high HP issues that I feel like, Toa kind of has, where it's like you almost need the Fang. It's your brick wall. You need the Fang to get it to those higher invos because it's so busted. So, like, if the Fang was so much rarer, you'd have a lot, probably have a lot of frustration with, like, irons that can't get their Fang because, it's so dang rare and they have to grind it with their... their spear or whatever, and so that's not great. So maybe like that's the issue and why they made it so common. But like all things considered, the Fang is like for what it does, just under a mega rare for how good it is and how useful it is in my head.
Well, I think so. I think the design like something that almost feels integral to the design of raids that they've done is that the mega rare from the raid is just absolutely busted in that raid. And I think that's intentional and it's cool. It's like, yeah, you get this super powerful thing and it's good for it to feel super powerful. The T-Bow is great at Cox, the Scythe is great at, Tob, and the Shadow is great at TOA. But the weird thing about TOA is you have 2 of those. So then... when you don't have either of those, it feels even like worse.
Yeah.
As it's like you're not going to be like, I can't do 2 away. I don't have a shadow. Even on a main, it's like it's like completely understandable that you don't have a shadow. But like if you don't have a Fang on a main, it does kind of feel like you can't do TOA, especially with how cheap it is. Like, you can see people being like, well, why don't you have a Fang? Like, you should get that. Like, nobody's going to question you not having like an over $1 bill item, but it's very strange that you need like your best in slot melee and your best in slot magic weapon, and not even for like the Fang, like you're saying, it's not even that it's best in slot. It's so far and above best in slot. Like, it is, first place by a mile. And it makes such a difference there. It almost feels like the grind to get your Fang is like the prologue, and then you can actually start the raid once you get it.
Yeah, and if it was like, I could see it a little bit more if it's like, hey, Fang is busted inside of Toa, and you kind of need it to do high invos in Toa. So it's a 50 invo, but it's not really that good outside of Toa. I could see that more. But the fact that it's so good outside of Toa, even after they switched, they fixed the bug, and for those of you who don't know, the bug was that so the Fang essentially re-rolls the accuracy twice and takes that. If you roll successful on one of them, it's successful. Well, they were doing that not only on stab but accidentally for slash, and so they changed that after like 9 months or a year, and so. Now, even with that change where slash still just is like a normal weapon, it's still just so good on stab that it's just, you're going to use it. I mean, it killed the rapier, basically outside of just doing Slayer, it killed the rapier. So, no, it is a crime to have it at 50 info. 150 is even probably too low, but, just to be like it's, what do you think? I mean, where do you think it should land?
Well, and it's kind of the crux of what we're saying here is it can't just be. There's two problems that are feeding into each other, because you want it to be more rare, but also you can't really do those higher invocations where you would get that because you need a Fang for those. So it's like something's got to break between the two of those. Like both of those have to change for it to work at all.
Yep. Yeah, and you can't really change it anymore. Like, I don't know if this is really a blowpipe thing where 4 years later you can go back and change it to like make it, because this is a drop rate thing. This isn't like a nerfing thing. They could always nerf it again, but can they change the drop rate on it so that all these irons have it, and now all these future irons have to grind out 4 times the amount of Toas? Like, that's not fair.
Well, yeah, and the weird thing about the Fang, as opposed to some of the other weapons that we might talk about, is that the only reason we're focusing on irons is because it is so dirt cheap that you don't even think of it really for a main.
Yeah, you definitely buy it for a main. Easy.
Yeah, like I feel like for a main, like a mega rare, it's almost the same conversation, because it's like almost as like you almost need to get a mega rare, even if it's not yours. You almost need to split a mega rare to afford to buy one. So it's almost the same conversation on a main and iron for a mega rare of being like, well, yeah, you're going to have to raid a bunch to be able to get this anyway. But yeah, the Fang, on my main, I had a Fang before I ever did TOA.
Yeah. So you never really had to quite go in the trenches like you are right now with this account.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my current goal for my account is to get a rapier so that I can have a chance at Toa to get a Fang, because I need something. That's the only thing, because I could do Krill, but the rapier is like my lifeline to try to get to Toa without having to suffer through these awful, with a leaf-bladed sword. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank God for the Scorching Bow, where at least now you have a reasonably understandable method to get the spear. Whereas like when I skipped it completely. I said, I would rather do like some kind of annoying Toas than try and deal with like 1 to 2 KC trips of Krill, to try and get that. So, that's the one, again, good thing JMods are doing, where they're adding different methods to get these weapons.
I do think I want to take a little a diversion really quick. I want to talk to some of the less less knowledgeable people and Don't get me wrong. It's totally fine to not know all the intricacies of this game. But I understand that a lot of people hear people like us saying the Fang is so good, the Fang is so good, the Fang is so good. And I think it's important to mention why the Fang is so good and why it's not good in certain places, because I see so many people using the Fang at like Bloodvelds.
Oh, yeah.
So just to give a brief explanation, the Fang is like Winter was saying, it rolls twice on accuracy. So it's a very accurate weapon. It will hit through a lot of high defense monsters. But the trade-off for that is it's a 5-tick weapon. So it attacks slower than, 4-tick is kind of the standard. Comparing it to a whip or something. So it has a lot more accuracy than a whip, but it's going to it's going to attack slower. So that is, once again, RuneScape's a game where the wiki is just part of it. There's literally a button for it integrated into the game. So, knowing which monsters have high or low defense. So all that to say, the Fang is really, really good, but only against high defense monsters. Against something like a Bloodveld, which has like no defense, a whip is going to blow it out of the water. So just helpful to anybody out there who is using your Fang for every single Slayer task. For generic Slayer mobs, a whip is going to outperform it like 90% of the time. But, when you go to Gerardor, when you go to Sire, or, bosses are naturally going to have higher defense. And so that's where the Fang really shines. And it lets you kind of bypass their super high defense. Like Sire, for example, it's not even meta anymore to reduce its defense. It's meta to use the Fang because it kind of bypasses that. Although that's probably a bad example because I think that meta's changed because of the, tormented demons and all that. But sorry, just a side note. I every time I do a Slayer task at Catacombs, I feel like I go over to somebody. I'm like, why are you using a Fang here?
Well, that is important because I don't even. It gets a noob trap, but it's like, well, I'm a noob, I guess, because like I was using the Fang for a little bit after I got it. I was like, oh heck, man, this because the other passive thing with it is that it you don't hit, what is it, like 1 through, it's like percentage of your lowest hit you don't hit, and then percentage of your highest hit. So you basically, if you think of it like in terms of like a 7-foot room, take off the 0 to 1 foot and take off the top foot as well. You're just hitting that middle section, and so like it's a little bit of a novelty in RuneScape because you don't get that with any other weapon. So I was like, oh, screw it. I'm doing Slayer. I'm gonna use my Fang. It's probably not that much worse, and it feels good. And so unless you DPS it, you don't really realize that it's worse than a Fang or just a normal whip because, you never hit zeros. Really, you really never hit zeros. And then you're never hitting 1s, 2s, or 3s, right? But you're also not hitting your max hit. And you're also losing a tick every single time, which seems like, super efficient guy. But like that does make a really big difference. That's like 20%, right? Faster for a whip.
Well, so as with so many things in this game, I'm not saying this because you're stupid for not knowing it. I'm saying this because there's no reason why you should just intuitively know that.
Exactly.
It's just, this weapon, it just works different than anything else in the game. Yeah. And, we're not going to explain that to you. You're just, you're going to have to rely on reading the blogs and the wiki and stuff to know that. So
it's the same. It's the same as all the like charge staffs. Like if you've ever wondered why charge staffs are just, everyone says charge staffs are better. Don't do Fire Wave. Don't do it. And now it makes more sense if something's weak to fire, but like those are 5-tick and charge staffs are 4-tick. And that is right there, all the difference. Like it's so much better to use something that's 4-tick a lot of the time. Not all the time, obviously, but yeah, it's like that speed of the cast makes a big difference. And I didn't know that for a long time. Because like you said, how do you know? It's something that you just sort of figure out. It's like F keys. Like, how long was I doing this game without using F keys? And then you go, wait, you're using keys? No, it's just what everyone does.
Yeah, or the people who still use their arrows to move their camera around.
I still do that. But that's just like...
You still do that? Just as a preference? I don't know what it is.
Because I know you can do it the other way, but like, I don't know. I just feel like I have more control over it, so... But like I said, I'm back in the Stone Age a little bit here, I just do what feels right.
Yeah. So as far as this is on the purples side of things, I think the ward is fine. I don't really have anything good or bad to say about the ward. I mean, I think it's a fine enough. I don't think everything in the purple chest has to be best in slot in every single encounter in the game. I think Masori's great. I love the way it looks. I actually prefer the unfortified look, but I think the fortified looks great too. Mm-hmm. I'm a big defender of breakdownscape, so I like how they did that with Armadillo.
Yeah.
And then we have the Shadow, which is kind of the elephant in the room in a lot of ways with TOA. I think the biggest complaint with the Shadow is that the most powerful weapon in the whole game comes from the easiest raid. How do you feel about that sentence?
I don't know. I mean, I just think there's a couple things with the Shadow. I don't like that it's 4 times. So outside the raid, it takes your magic attack and strength bonus and it triples it. So Shadow on itself is not really that good, but then when you add Ancestral to it and you add the Occult and you add the Tormented Bracelet and all that sort of stuff, it makes it just busted, right? Well, then they decided to go ahead and do what they did with the T-Bow and make it better inside the raid, make it 4 times. I don't understand why that was necessary by any means, but they did do that. And that wasn't your question, but I think that the rate is fair. Like, for example, I've done probably around 350 maybe TOAs, and I don't have one yet. I have like 18 purples. I don't have one. It's 1 in 24. So like, I'm not upset that I don't have one yet. I don't think that that's crazy for how powerful it is. I think it's a mega rare, and I think it fits. I think it's going to get nerfed at some point because like I don't know if they really thought about the long-term ramifications of it. At least like T-Bow has a niche that it follows, and it's not best in slot everywhere. Both is better than it in some spots. Shadow is just like a blanket across the board. And now how the heck are they going to come out with more magic damage equipment without having the Shadow get more and more busted and make it that much better than the second best thing at most places. So I think they're going to have an issue and they're going to have to deal with it down the road. But
yeah,
it's a cool weapon.
We'll see y'all in Falador for that.
Yeah, it is a really sweet weapon. Like I'd love to get one, and I think it looks awesome. I think the history of it's cool. I think it makes for some good methods. Like, so there's methods for Kree. Like Kree is for the God Wars dungeon. Kree is how you get Armadillo, right? And Armadillo over, and it's just kind of terrible if you're using range. It's really not fun. You can use chins, you can use Bofa, but like it's bad. But for Shadow, it's not that bad. It gives you another method, and all it costs is like 1.2 bill or whatever. But like,
yeah.
But like, hey, if you can afford it, yeah, you should get a less painful method to do that. And so I do like that it opens up the door for some notoriously annoying bosses as well.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I also don't have a Shadow and I've never had one, so maybe we're the wrong people to talk about this. I don't know. I think it's hard to say. I mean, it's the same thing with the Fang. The Fang is literally a double-edged sword, but like it's weird when like I was watching. I think it was I'm a Drum was doing KQ, and he was just using a Shadow for both phases of KQ. And there's that part of you that's like, man, I don't know. It's just kind of lame that you're just completely ignoring every mechanic of the boss and just shooting it with your super powerful staff. But then the other side of that is that it's KQ. So anything to make KQ better is great. So I don't know. Yeah, I go back and forth on it. I will grind for a Shadow, and when I get a Shadow, I will downvote anything to nerf it. I'll fight to keep it powerful.
As we do.
Is such a good weapon. And it isn't. I don't think it's like far and above, like miles above the other two mega rares. And it is true that like when we're doing Tob, it's like, well, we need scythes in this raid because scythes are so powerful at Tob. It just feels it feels at least one notch higher on the both the usefulness outside of the raid. I'd say, I guess, usefulness outside the raid, I guess it's probably tied with Tebow. I think Tebow has a ton of uses as well. And then Scythe is kind of the ugly duckling as far as, and it's improved a bunch, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't feel as if it's as universal as a weapon as those two.
No,
yeah, I don't know.
Good at it's like the stuff that people. Yeah. I guess I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
like it's a tiny notch down, but like it is, since it changes, it is like Vardorvis, you're using it. Any sort of nightmare, you're using it. Araxor, you're using it. Anywhere there's crush or slash, you're using it. So, you know, there's still, I'd say it's pretty close. It's still. Yeah. I think it's the most expensive mega rare right now.
Okay, so moving on to the other biggest complaint about TOA, but I think I'm getting the feeling you might have a little different opinion. Let's talk about puzzles.
Yeah, the puzzles, yeah.
So yeah, I think 3 of the puzzles are interesting. The fourth one isn't a puzzle at all, but we'll get to that. But yeah, so I guess, when I say puzzles, I don't even mean the monkey room. So I'm addressing the other 3 puzzles. I think it's a cool idea. I think especially for kind of the Egyptian like pyramid theme of TOA, like that Indiana Jones Tomb Raider kind of thing. You want, I guess not the movie Tomb Raider, but just raiding a tomb. Like it does feel fitting that, kind of similar to like Pyramid Plunder, like you're getting past traps and puzzles and stuff. So thematically, I think it's a cool idea. And I think the first 50 times you do those puzzle rooms, you're kind of on board. But I think the biggest thing is it just starts to wear on you over time, having to do them, because I think I've said many times with the puzzles in this game at all is they make them just one notch too complicated to just kind of do easily. And then you get a RuneLite plugin and never think about it again. And then it just feels like busy work. And that's kind of how I feel about the 3 like actual puzzle rooms. It just feels like busy work that lengthens the raid.
Yeah, I think that is what it comes down to, because you look at the Caffrey ones and they are completely solved on RuneLite. You can have a little bit of fun with the last one if you're, messing around with your friends and you're like, I'll follow you, and then you don't, like it can be kind of fun if you're, doing that, but if you're trying to grind, it's just like, Lord help, the guy that has to take the obelisk one, because it's just, it's just sucky, and the other guys are flying through and they're waiting for you. And, I don't mind the idea of puzzles, but they just, I don't know how they didn't assume that these were going to get fixed by RuneLite or solved by RuneLite. Because, like the light puzzle in Akka, it's not even random. Like if it were random and RuneLite couldn't really solve it, then that'd be better. Like you actually have to, because the first, week or two where we were all having like, oh, where is it? Like, it's kind of fun that way, and like someone's going, no, the solve's over here. And you're going, well, there's the solve over here. And you go, oh, there's 2 different solves for it. Because there are. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, when you do what we do and you do it hundreds of times.
It was bad for the mirror puzzle. It was bad when they were like when you got the tile plugins that had like, I don't know if you ever did it, where it had the tile markers to say like 1, like if it was rotation 1, you put them on all the 1 spaces. But then when they updated the plugin to literally show you where to put the mirror and which way to face it, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's dead. It's just brain dead.
Taking any thought out of it. Well, and like the Caffrey puzzle, there's one of those I've never solved the way it's supposed to be solved. And I'm pretty sure you have to use like math or something. The one where you like push the button and it shows you a shape. I have no idea how that one's even supposed to be solved.
Oh, the one
never done it legitimately.
The one that has the number code or like the puzzle.
Yeah.
Key. Yeah. Each one is a different number, and you got to add them up and get to the total. Which I will say, like that one was really obnoxious to do before RuneLite. Like I really did not enjoy that one because I sat there like actually like I had to have a picture of it on my desktop. And I had to pull it up, and I'd have to go, all right, so that one's that equals 11. Cool. All right, I go this way. If you get it wrong, then you're like, oh, I gotta redo it. So I don't mind that one. But or now I don't mind it so much. But like at the time, it was kind of annoying. And yeah, I don't know. It's at least with solos, you could pick a path where you can skip 2 of them, by crossing over.
Yeah.
So there's that, but I don't know. It was kind of a swing and it was kind of a miss. Yeah. The back one I don't mind so much again, because that one, like, it's a little sepulcher-ish. You do have to get the timing kind of right. That one I don't mind so much, but the rest of them I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah, it would have been cool if they had like, as much as I hate the concept of Night in the Theater where you have to do a raid to complete a quest, but it would have been cool if they had TOA as a part of like Beneath Cursed Sands quest and you had to do a TOA, like a 0 invo completion. It would have been cool if they had those puzzles and then every time after that, it was just, a crumbled room or auto-completed or something.
Or even like have them as invos where you can add them on. And,
yes.
like there's a number of things I think they should have had as invos that they just have a normal part of the raid as it is. And I mean, there's so much flexibility they could have done with invos. But yeah, it is what it is. I don't know. I mean, overall, I wish they hadn't put them in there because it is a long raid. And if you could take 8 minutes off the raid by not doing those, I think that's a good thing. But yeah, it's a little taxing.
I don't know. Yeah, it is. I think that, I think it's just another one of those things that's just kind of when somebody says, hey, does anybody want to raid? And it's like, which raid are we doing? That part of like, it's, I don't know. I feel like it's almost like a resigned sigh when I'm going to do TOA. It's like, yeah, I'll do TOA. It's like, I think you just know that there's all this like, and especially with groups, it's like, there's this like downtime because other people are solving the puzzles or like you're solving half the puzzle or whatever, however you guys, differentiate, split it up. But like, it's just kind of boring downtime. Like I think the Zabak one is probably my favorite. Like, you're kind of moving and grooving in that one. And there is a little bit of room for strategy and like you can get like on a solo, you can get your first 2 jugs and complete the room before the croc reaches it if you're tick perfect. Like that is something
skill.
Is the kind of exactly. And so that's the kind of thing that it's interesting and fun but it's like in the same breath, it's like, well, that's not a puzzle though. I mean, it's like an agility thing and it's fun, but the Akka room and the Kefri room are the only ones that are actually puzzles, and those are the worst ones. So I don't know. It's maybe if they had changed it to be a little more of like a skill, like something. I don't know. Maybe I feel like maybe the Chambers puzzle rooms are kind of, some of those ones are maybe a better example of puzzles.
But they have the same issue. Like nobody likes doing the ice demon really. The crabs, I don't know. I myself, I haven't learned to do solo cocks yet. So I'll probably be doing that pretty soon. I'm sure my tune will change. But as of right now, just because the raids leading up to Olm are so brain dead, it's kind of like, or it's just kind of annoying if you have like shamans and stuff. Like the method is to safe spot them. Like it's kind of the same with mystics. Yeah. It's like it's just not. So it's not like these are only Toa problems. But this is 2 raids later, so you would hope it'd be a little better at not putting those in there.
Yeah. And then there's the monkey room, which is like, we kind of already talked about it. It's been improved massively. I think my biggest problem with the monkey room is it's not a puzzle. It's like it almost feels like a 5th boss. And I don't like that. I don't like that you don't regain your health at the end of it. Just for this, it's just not consistent. I guess it's like, I guess maybe I'm just not good at it, but I feel like I take a bunch of damage. You get poisoned there, and it feels like a boss fight, but it feels like a boss fight where you don't regain your health at the end in the same way that you do in every other boss in the raid.
Yeah, with bosses, I get what you're saying. Yeah, because you don't regain with the puzzles, but that feels like a boss a little bit. Yeah, and it's not really as much of an issue anymore, but it was then. I think that it's okay now because the supplies that they give you are pretty generous unless you choose to have, like less help or whatever, where you're choosing to get less supplies. So at least it's kind of built in where like, you're going to have enough stuff likely to get to recharge your prayer after that point, or your food and all that sort of stuff, your health and all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, it was definitely an issue. Like every single time before the update of the minigame, I would have to like use my yellow gem for the most part. Whereas now,
oh man,
I'm like, so it is, at least for me, it's just kind of a strat where like, I don't mind my health being down a little bit from the monkey room. I don't mind. Like, I kind of like if I'm like 60 to 70 HP, because if I'm going into Red X, likely if we're doing a group of 5 people, there's only a couple of us that can Red X. And so, it helps it so that if the other person has full health or whatever, and they run in first, then the next time after the first boulders, Bob is gonna target whoever the lowest HP is. And so if I'm already a little bit lower HP than everyone else from the previous minigame, then it's going to lock on me and then I can Red X, rather than having to have it lock on someone else that just has to tank a bunch of hits now, which is notoriously Baba's issue. So
yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah.
So little things like that where it's like, I don't mind it so much because of that. But if you go from Tob, where you're healed after every single boss room, to that, it's a little bit of like, ugh. It's a little bit, not terrible, but
And I definitely can't come in as hot as I would have, because the changes solved so many of the issues. Because the other big issue was that before the changes, the monkey room took longer than the other 3 puzzles combined. But it's a lot more in line with them now, which thank God for that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And if you don't mind, that would kind of bring me to one of my qualms with it.
Let's go.
Is, just like the things that are cool with it, like, let's say, so like Butterfly. I love Butterfly. And this isn't anything Jake is saying wrong. It's just kind of the way it is, where it's like, it's kind of like a shadow thing where if you have a shadow, you can Butterfly. And it is the best way to do it. You Butterfly, and what that means is you're running around and Akka's trying to chase you, but Akka can't get to you. So Akka just keeps running around, and everyone else is on the edges, and they're just like having full go at Akka, and you're just taking advantage of Akka, and it's great. And the person with the shadow gets to hit them, every other spot that they stop at. As someone that doesn't have a shadow, and this is a shadow, this is a shadow problem, so I fully understand that. There is a 4-tick method to do it, but it kind of like, you don't get into much DPS. It's if you don't have a shadow, it's not really worth doing Butterfly. So it's a weird kind of like, one of the 2 cool methods that Toa has is kind of a little bit kept by having a mega rare. Which again, it's fine, and I'm like, I wouldn't probably change it, but it is just one of those weird little things where it's a cool method, and like, I'll do the 4-tick one so that everyone else doesn't get hit. But like, as a raid that your purple chance is determined by how much damage you do, I'm better off if it switches to a melee and I'm hitting it with my melee, or it switches to range and I'm hitting it with my Bofa, than running around and just hitting it with my trident, So it's one of those weird little things where it's like, they didn't come up with that. That's just a glitch that we found, and they kept it, and I'm glad they kept it. I would never change it. I'm not trying to say they should change it. It's just kind of like serendipity, circumstance, the way it ended up this weird way where it's like, hey, another advantage if you have the mega rare in the raid. But just another reason where I'm like, I don't know if it needed a ×4 in the raid, because it has that extra advantage right there as well. So yeah, I mean, it's just one weird little thing. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Butterfly or Red X.
I do, but I want to move on to the next section. Sorry, I'm being very like organized and unnatural in the way I'm doing this. Yeah. But so I think that the 3 things we're talking about, kind of the general ideas, but I do have the last section of the negatives is kind of like what could still be fixed, or what like things that could be patched. And they for Butterfly and Red X, they've I can't remember. Have they? I know they like Red X has been like a back and forth of they patched it and then unpatched it kind of a thing. And didn't they do the same for Butterfly at one point?
I don't remember if they patched it. If they did, it would have just been a really short thing, and then someone would have blown up on Reddit, and they went back.
Yeah.
So I don't remember.
But yeah, so this is a weird thing for me. I don't know how to Butterfly or Red X. I won't pretend. But personally, I feel it's interesting. I think butterflying is just very interesting and kind of like impressive and cool. And I think it's a cool way of doing the room. But then on the other hand, I feel like Red Xing feels like this cheap cheese that like I would be a fan of them patching out Red X at the big caveat there is at the cost of Baba hitting less through prayer, which I believe they did do some of that with the patch. But I would like to see you not be able to cheese that room as much, or actually, what I should say, I wish that you didn't feel like you had to cheese that room. I wish you could do the fight as intended and it not just completely destroy your resources because you get hit through prayer so much.
Hold on, Trey. I got to go grab my cannon and head to Faldor real quick for this little update you're doing.
Okay. Yes, exactly. No, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. So I think Butterfly is a really cool and I don't know, it's an impressive thing to do, I think. I mean, I'm sure people say once you get it down, it's easy, whatever. But yeah, but then Red Xing, I think from what I've heard, at least, it is significantly easier in the first place. But it also, I don't know, it just feels cheap to me, and I've never liked it.
Yeah, I can understand. I can understand that. To me, it doesn't feel any different. I guess outside of, I do agree with you that Baba hits like a truck through prayer, and that doesn't make sense. That definitely shouldn't be the case. There's been a lot of frustration with that. And yeah, like this is sort of like a community found bug that is a band-aid for that issue. Like that, I'll fully agree with that totally. However, my take on that is for a raid that we have been saying gets stale as you get into higher invos, finding two things to do that are kind of like your bright spots that are like when I learned them for like 50 raids, it was like, Toa. Yeah, I could do Butterfly. That is a lot of fun. Oh, and I get to do Red X. That's a lot of fun too. It's just another thing that makes the higher invos more fun. And I wouldn't want to take that away because it would make me less wanting to do it. Even if they lowered it so the HP, it just makes it so it's a little less fun. It is taking advantage of it, but I think that's also what Butterfly does. I don't see much difference there in my eyes, unless you might disagree with that.
No, I think I'm saying what I'm saying, fully aware that they're not. I agree that they're not that different. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of weird to me that I find such a difference in that. Yeah. But I think what I'm noticing as you're saying what you're saying is that the difference here is that you are the one doing those things and I'm the one standing there getting free attacks off.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so I think that maybe that's why it feels completely different to me because, I think learning those and doing those, especially for a solo, would be very rewarding. But I think, it feels weird. I mean, I'm trying to think of examples in other raids even where it's like, okay, this one person is going to take care of the boss and everybody just stand there and attack it. I mean, I guess you can like maybe Ice Demon or something, but like for the final boss or you know what I mean? I don't know.
Ice Demon is a puzzle. So yeah, this is a boss versus a puzzle. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. But
that's a good perspective. I didn't really think about it that way. I guess when I'm not Red Xing, I am just unloaded. You got like 4 guys unloading on Baba.
Yeah. And all that to say, if I'm in a raid with somebody who's Red Xing, I breathe a sigh of relief if they're good at it. Cause it's like, I'm just gonna hang out with the guys in the voice chat until his boss is dead, So yeah, it's I mean, we're singling out the only 2 instances of emergent gameplay in the entire raid, and I'm saying I have a problem with it. So I'm coming off as a hypocrite now. But
no, I don't think so. But
I think maybe I just got FOMO, and if I learn it, maybe I'll be a lot more into it.
Well, it's one of those things where I think it's cool because there's 2 different ways to Red X. just like there's two different ways to butterfly. Well, there's a few ways, but like two main ways. You can do the moth or you can do the butterfly, 4-tick or 5-tick. And with Red X, I found it really hard. Like I tried for like 20 minutes to do the traditional Red X where you drop a pot and you do that. I just was, this was super frustrating to me. It was way harder than butterflying to me. And I found someone else doing a method where you run under him and then you can control walk out and attack him and run back in. And you don't have to drop any pots. It's not actually a Red X method. You're just timing walking under him. And for me, that clicked. And that might be why I'm like, no, I love it. Because like, it's just, it's unique that there's two different ways to do the same technique. It's one of the weird things about the game, but it's kind of one of the weird things about the game that I like. So, and I think to that point, there are other ways that you can like those are the only two, you said those are like, the two things in Toa that like you can, kind of like take advantage of and like, glitches, I guess. There are other ones, but like you don't get any advantage out of them. Like with the P2 or P3 wardens, instead of going left, right, center, you can just stay on one side. You can run as they're coming across, but you don't get any advantage out of it. You just kind of look like a weirdo. So there's like a couple things like that where you could do them in Toa, but like you don't get any advantage out of them. So it's like, Red X and Butterfly are the two kind of like, there's a reason to do all this extra effort. It adds a skill ceiling. And I dig both of them, but I could understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, and I think also maybe something that, as opposed to, like going back to, it's just because it's fresh in my mind, like this Scythe-Viking, this Arpus. Like for one thing, it's something that everybody in the room is doing, but also it's something that you're like squeezing more damage out of the boss, as opposed to Red X and Butterfly are ways to avoid taking a ton of damage from the boss. Yeah, and so it just kind of goes back to the whole evocation, doing a shit ton of damage kind of a thing.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, so as far as just kind of things that could still potentially be patched, the only other one I had, and this is a very small thing, but I think it would be nice to have some defined like recommended invo presets. And that mostly comes from the perspective of someone who we run a lot of learners. It would be nice if there was like, oh, here's a low mechanical 150 that has like walk the path and low mechanical changes, or like here's a faster 150 that doesn't have walk the path or something. Yeah. And having like 5 or 10 of those that you could be like, hey guys, we're going to run this one. So you can learn the mechanics from that one. Oh, like here's a 150 without feeling special or whatever it is. Because it is always like 5 to 10 minutes whenever you guys are running learn, like, okay, which invos can you not do? But
yeah, that's a good idea.
Like I said, that's a very minor thing.
Yeah, because otherwise it's that weird thing with RuneScape where you got to go to a third party to, like, you go to Reddit to find people's recommendations. Whereas I know there are a decent amount of people that like having everything encompassed in the actual RuneScape game. Purists, but even more so, like just being able to, like, it's weird when you have to go to a website to find the best way to do this or this or this. But that is kind of RuneScape at this point. You need the wiki, so.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any other of like things that you think that could be patched like tomorrow that you just would like to see?
Just little things. I'd say like the biggest thing is probably biggest tiny thing. So, and most of you are going to roll your eyes at this, I'm sure. During Zebek, there is he throws out magic, like a magic burst, right? I don't know what a specific one is, but it's this magic, it's an invo that you can add where he hits you with a magic attack and it hurts you for damage, right? It's outside of his normal range or magic attack, right? And so you see it because you see a little bit of like the ancient magic's blood, kind of going up, and he's going to hit me with this attack. I got to pray magic, right? So it's this weird thing where like Toa's very much, if you pray the right thing, you're not going to get hit with the damage for the most part. But for this attack, let's say he sends a range out there at you. There's only one tick that this range can hit you. If you pray against it, that one tick, that 0.6 seconds, you're good.
Yeah.
But there's a number of times, and it's not like very rarely. It's pretty common where I'm going, okay, either the rock's coming at me. Oh, he's going to hit me with this blood magic. Oh, I swear if they're on the same tick. And I switched to magic. I know it's right as the rock's hitting me. Okay, so you have to pick one or the other. So you're either going to get hit with the blood magic or you're going to get hit with the rock. It's not a big thing, but it'd be nice if they just like artificially moved it so that bad attack cannot be on the same tick as a range attack so that you can avoid it. You know, just like, again, adding a little bit of skill ceiling to it so that like maybe it's a tick before and you go, okay, pray magic, and the instant that hits you, you switch to range, protect from range, and then you're protected from both of them. And it's just a little thing, but that'd be something that they could patch pretty easy, I feel like, if they wanted to.
Well, and isn't that also affected by what level Babo's at?
As far as the magic itself coming out at you, or what?
Well, like ability to flick it, because I feel like I've been in raids where people have been like, "Oh, Baba is level 1, so we're not able to flick it," but Baba's level 2, so we are able to flick it. Or am I just completely off base?
No, you can flick it at any point. I've never had one. I don't do many level 4 Babas, but I'm pretty sure even that you can. You can orb flick them.
Okay.
Or you can, you can one tick flick it, or you can just lazy flick it. Yeah.
Okay.
The best of mine.
Any other patches that stick out to you that you'd like to see?
No, we pretty much touched on them. I mean, that's pretty much
just revamp the whole raid. That's all I want.
No, it's mainly the biggest thing is just the higher invocations where, lower invocations if you don't have a thing, I guess. But like they should allow you to be able to ramp up the raid difficulty without also ramping up the HP and the defense. Because it's already a tedious raid. Let's be able to throw on more mechanics that make it difficult without making it more tedious. That's the biggest thing I think they should change.
For sure. All right. Well, once again, this is probably going to be the longest episode this podcast has ever released. So I should definitely wrap it up. Dilz gave me the keys and I went crazy with it, and he's going to take them back from me. But no, I mean, I'm having a great time. Once again, I would love to hear feedback if you're like, okay, you need to be more concise. But I love talking about RuneScape.
Oh, I know. It's I can just go like I can go for hours, just like, well, I love this, but they really could fix this. And half the time it's not a big deal. It's just little things that like we play it so much that little things make a big difference to us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's just, I mean, so much of skilling is like this little thing, this one tick here. You're going to be doing this 100,000 times. So this one tick here is going to really make a difference.
Is there, you mentioned that you have, just to drag it on a tiny bit longer, you mentioned that you have a bunch of invos. Is there any one invo that like you have in your head that would make it a better raid?
Oh, I don't know about better raid. I think for me, for one, I was just having fun with it, but I think it was all kind of couched in the idea of how to add more chaos in lieu of reducing the scaling. So like one I thought was fun for Kefri. There's a Kefri invo I was thinking of where instead of it always being when you turn Airless Sultan always being the same shape of a bomb, to mix it up. So like it could be a 3x3, a 5x1, 2x4. Oh, yeah. So it kind of mix up the way you'd have to react for your movement instead of just going in that same back and forth pattern.
Yeah, that's cool. That would be cool. Yeah, because if you're with someone else and you both have two different ones coming at you.
Here's a really high skill ceiling one. Removes all gaps in Zabak's wave special.
Oh, so
you have to skip the waves.
Oh. That'd be tough. That's good.
That would be tough.
That, though. Yeah, because that is a thing. Like that's a cool one
too. Let's see. Yeah, there's some of these that are just kind of more things, but so I really like the idea. I think it would make more. I don't know. In my mind, the perfect solution, and this is something I was wanting before the monkey room got fixed, but I always thought it'd be cool instead of having the monkey room and then Baba to just combine the two and have like instead of the just generic baboons that spawn during the Baba fight, just to have those different baboons spawning, like having volatiles walking at you, which is essentially, it's essentially turning into crabs. It's spawning at Verzik, but having volatile spawn, having the venomous one spawn, and just having to do that. And I even think it would be, I guess just having a kamikaze that is always coming after you to blow up is probably just a game mechanic that is kind of fun no matter what, like with crabs. Like I think having a volatile spawn during wardens would be interesting, like just to break, like you're saying with crabs, it just breaks you out of that rhythm. And I think that adds a higher skill ceiling because, RuneScape's a rhythm game. So breaking you out of that rhythm, having to get back into the rhythm is very difficult to do.
I'm actually just thinking of there could be an invo that throws those monkeys at you when you have Baba, when you pick Baba, when you pick that left side. And then, during P3, they're coming at you while you're going right, left, center. And you got to switch your gear to kill them off as they're coming at you, or move it to volatile or something, or poison, or venom, that'd be really interesting. I think that'd be cool,
I think, so another one that would be interesting for big groups, it's Rain of Fire. Kefri's fireball attack is offset to each player as opposed to all at once. So that would increase the absolute chaos of Kefri in a big group.
As your bro.
And then here, I'll do these last two. So I have Insanity 2 and Insanity 3. So Insanity 2, I have during the skull phase, skulls will explode for massive damage if attacked by the same player twice. It prevents you from hitting twice. Also, during the fourth phase, tiles will slowly be removed from the sides as well as the back. So just making an even smaller area as the tiles close in on you.
Yeah, it pushes you together.
Yeah, it pushes you together would be interesting. And then this is the craziest one that I want to see. I don't know. But Insanity 3 is all 4 demi-bosses spawn in the third phase of Wardens and attack and rotation.
Oh, God. So. Yeah, see, it sounds like I'd never pick that, but, someone would probably figure something else that you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, it actually sounds like Insanity, which I think is what I'm going for with that. You know what I mean?
See, I had an idea where, the most fun thing about Verzik is the fact that you have a tank and you're running around, and I said, the variables about it. I feel like it'd be cool to have some sort of Insanity or just another invocation where now the warden is mobile during P2 or 3 or during P3.
Oh god.
So you have that, and then you could also add another invocation so now someone's the tank, right? And so in that little space, you've got that guy that's moving back and forth. I don't know if you probably necessarily wouldn't have the right, left, center. It'd change the whole way it works. But they could design that, and it'd be a big undertaking, but that would make it way more dynamic. And they could also you could have another invocation, which makes it so that there are random tiles that get lifted up or lightninged, and you have a second or two that you have to get away from them while they're attacking, while the warden's attacking you in different spots. Just stuff like that, kind of like a crabs thing, but just like a Toa specific one. So
yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, because it feels like a lot of what we're saying really just breaks down to, we're saying the raid's stale because you're in this repetitious rhythm. RuneScape's a rhythm game, and we enjoy that. But the fun part is breaking out of that rhythm, having to divert your attention to something else, and then getting back into that rhythm. From breaking it down to the core of that. I think that it's interesting. You're talking about having them walking around. It actually made me think more of Olm. Like if Olm just gets pissed off and just comes off that cliff,
his weird
and
little
just stands up and attacks you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's I think it'd be something like that would be interesting.
I think, a lot of these that I came up with are really just it really does boil down to that. Like I have one for Akka called Drowning in It, which is cum balls randomly spawn throughout the fight. Just random things happening throughout the fight that just shake it up a little bit. And, in addition to making it more interesting, it's just, Yeah, it's just more fun. I mean, I feel like we laugh the most at Tob because just random shit kills people all the time, and we laugh about it and have a good time. And Tob just feels so much more rigid, but in comparison.
Yeah, but
to TOA,
it is the thing though where Toa was a lot more fun before I started doing Tob. So I almost feel like it's an ignorance is bliss sort of thing where I was just like, I didn't realize how fun the other raid was and those mechanics were because I had never done them. And Toa was like genuinely like, I'm addicted to Toa. And unfortunately, Tob kind of made Toa less fun because
100%.
and I wish that wasn't the case. And I'm the last person to ever say like, well, because you haven't experienced this, you don't understand. That's not the case. But for me, it was a little bit of that.
I think that because I mean, even earlier on in this podcast that I've been on, earlier on in this year, I've said like, it annoys me so much when people say they only like Tob and Inferno. But I kind of get it now. I don't agree with it, but I definitely understand it more because once again, both of those things have a lot. It's weird. It's like randomness in game design is usually not the best thing, but like it's the right type of randomness that makes it really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. We like repetition in a certain way, but we don't want it too repetitious. We're so needy. But that kind of is what it is. And like we touched on before, all of our minds are so much different. That's why I think invocations could be really, really cool, but they can't just like give up on it after the first iteration. And I'm not saying the next raid should be invocations because I don't think it should be, but I think with this, they should come out with new ones because like you said, like there's going to be somebody that's going to want to shoot you for putting on the extra comballs come during the Akka fight. Someone's going to want to shoot you for that because a lot of people hate it. I don't mind it. So I would probably turn it on. A bunch of warden fight. Maybe there's someone that's like, heck no, I don't want to have a mobile warden with, the monkeys coming out at me. Like, I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather turn on a bunch of invocations during the raid, the mini bosses. And it gives you flexibility to lean into the stuff that you like with it. And I think that they're just missing the opportunity by not readdressing this and adding stuff to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I know I'm trying to wrap up, but on a side note, it's also just such a huge missed opportunity that they're not adding more invocations or doing more doing invocation of the month or something, or like some of these, like it would be so cool for some of these crazy invocations to just be like, this is the invocation of the month. And it would just be like content creators would go crazy for that. They'd be like, everybody would do the challenges and stuff. And then, I don't know, like they just kind of set it and forget it. And I get that
the hype would be crazy.
The rest of yeah, exactly. It just feels like a missed opportunity. But I don't know. I feel like maybe because the reception from the like HLC was negative, they assumed that they wouldn't get on board for these like crazy high invo ones. But I don't know.
I think you get a lot of HLC that are like, wait, you're going to increase the mechanics, but not increase the tediousness? Oh, yeah, for sure. I really think that, for sure. I think it'd be really, really good. So,
cool. Well, I'll get us wrapped up here. That's everything. That is not everything we had to say about Toa. That I feel like that scratched the surface, but that's all we can put without Dilz. He'll probably delete our recording without even looking at it, just seeing how long it is.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on, Winter.
Thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun. Love talking RuneScape and grades and all that.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as plugs go, you can find both of us. At least one of us will be on every night in our Discord. If you join the Discord in the in-game clan, there's all this stuff we're talking about with the raids. There's so many people. Like I said, there are people in the clan every single day who say Toa anyone, and they mean anyone, and they'll take you on learners. We obviously learning Tob is it's a longer kind of a process because there's it's just harder to learn, but there are people who are willing to do that, and people running raids all the time, and people just helping, giving advice. I don't know. I can't plug the clan enough.
The people in this CC are definitely people that love taking learners on things. And yeah, if there's, I mean, Trey, I can speak for Trey and myself at least, but a lot of others too. If we're in the voice channel on Discord, hop in, please. Like, even if you just say, hey, I don't want to talk, I just want to watch. Half the time we're streaming whatever we're doing. But if you want to raid with us, if any of this sounds fun, just hop in the Discord or send us a PM or send something in the CC to one of us, and we definitely take you on a raid or whatever.
Yeah. Other than that, I think there's a Patreon. I think you can buy Dilz a coffee. I don't know. I think so. Mm-hmm. But there's all of that. And yeah, I would love to get some response from people about what you think about this format, what you think about like going forward. You know, I've already messaged a couple of other people in our clan about some different subjects. You know, it's not, you know, episode 2 isn't going to be top and then episode 3 Cox. I'm wanting to kind of go all over the place and just kind of focus on some subjects. So yeah, we'll kind of see where that goes, but definitely want to hear back from people. But anyways, that's, I think, all I got from both of us. So yeah, Winter, once again, thanks so much for coming on. Maybe we can get you back on another one of these times.
Yeah, anytime.
And yeah, I guess everybody out there, thanks for listening. And we'll see you in the future. I don't know. Bye.